Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today I'm going to do level 2, lesson 5, but I also might mush some of level 1, lesson 5 in there. Level 2 stuff is called The Origins of Solar Consciousness, and the level 1 stuff is Mastering the Mind and is all about meditation. And these two things very much fit together. And the upshoot of all of this is that you are in a giant brain, that the sun and the stars and the world of pure light actually represents the physical anatomy of light body of a giant being, and also the cognitive anatomy or the signals that are being processed by that physical anatomy, and that you are a huge part of that. Let's talk also about you as a fractal microcosm of that larger being. And when I talk about light body, and this goes for like any of the personal work that I do in trying to help people as individual organisms, your light body, as I define it, is your information body. Like you can do a fun exercise, and anytime I say light, you can switch it out for the concept of information or of data or of like awareness or sentience or something like that. And that you have in your own body not only a cloud of energy around you. Like when I say light body, most people think like a glowing amorphous cloud or a ball of energy around you. And that's certainly accurate, but it's so much more. Like, for example, there are many direct analogs in your physical cellular body that carry light. Doctors in your medical science world call it biophotons, but we can define our own way of talking about it in this class. So let's go through this. Some of those apparatuses in your physical body that you can see with the five senses and even see them like using a microscope or something like that. Your fascia. Any place where there's collagen in your body, your collagen is not just a structure that's like, I would say like girders, like an armature that gives structure to your body. It is also conduits for light. It carries light around your body. And the light is sub-threshold of optical light, like you wouldn't necessarily see it with your physical retinas, but it's living light or biophotons. And you see that type of stuff with your, where's my little stylus, your inner eye. And we talked about non-duality or moving beyond duality and seeing and sensing with your inner eye. But you know that it's not just one point. When you're sensing with your inner eye, you're really sensing with a whole giant sphere or a bunch of people all around you. Sorry, I'm getting confused because I have people coming into the meeting. So you guys know I can't always stop in midstream in order to admit people at this point, because I can't always touch technology and keep myself together. So I will sometimes not do that because it does. You can tell how much it just threw me off. Your physical body, light body. You have other things that are obvious, like your neurology that carries signals of consciousness, your brain, your spinal cord, and your peripheral neurology. But other things that might be less apparent in terms of carrying signal, like your teeth, your mouth crystals. These are not just made for smashing up French fries or pieces of salad or something like that in order to go into the cauldron of your belly. No, in fact, in ancient concurrent Atlantis, our teeth, our mouth crystals are recognized as incredibly fine-tuned instruments that we use as part of our telepathy, as the dental nerves and the center of the teeth all relate to the brain and the telepathic apparatuses of the brain. So it's as in this world, ridiculous as if you had like an extremely finely tuned Stradivarius and you used it for like a potato masher, and that was normal around here, but that's not normal around here. Okay, light body also is your retinas, and that's obvious because your retinas and your optic nerve and your processing areas of your brain are, intuitively obvious that would be connected to light. But other aspects of, let's say, your salivary glands. You're like, oh, that's a weird one. I know. I'm sorry, I'm saying as I collect myself, because there are so many other physical, because your salivary gland, you think like this is for eating food. It is so much more than that. These things. Oh, so how about your cell membranes? That's a good one because it's not that obvious. People think of the cell membranes as like a necessary container or an encapsulation, like to keep the intracellular goo inside of the cell. And it does that, but also your intracellular membranes are part of the calculative I hesitate to say computer process, but you are a natural biological supercomputer. And the computational processes that happen in your body are far beyond just in your brain. They're in the lining of your stomach, your cell to cell communication, how your body perceives of hormones, something that's like throughout all your whole entire body, like insulin, blood sugar, metabolism. And all of that is a direct relationship to the world of light because glucose and food and metabolism are innately connected to the world of light. So, a better way of saying this is the good people of my class, you are occupants like thoughts inside of a larger galactic scale brain. And your whole entire life is part of the self-exploratory thought processes of a great being. And you are coming into greater self-knowledge as being a tiny little offshoot or a fractal microcosm of that much, much larger being. And the journey that the sun or the star is going through that has given birth to you and created you in reality is a direct analog to your own journey of awakening. So we're in this incredible moment right now in this planet, in the planetary awakening journey, where each individual, like you and I, are coming to an awakening about the true nature of ourselves as light and our bodies as light, even while our planet is coming to an awakening. And also, please know that a lot of the things that have tormented you or the non-pristine aspects of the system are being resolved very, very immediately. I'm just hydrating over here, and I'll tell you more about that. Because, I always like to give the energetic weather report. And it's simplistic to reduce it down to, you've been in a war between like truthful light or divinely connected light and false light, but it kind of fits with what you've been experiencing. And I recently took my dog to get her teeth cleaned in the local city. And so this is where I can give you some weather report. Very much improved. Positive, positive, positive. So the local city feels more like it felt in 2017. And that was, of course, before the deployment and activation of the 5G satellites and before the subcutaneous inoculation campaign. So those two things that I just mentioned are, and we'll just say fictionally part of a book club, but in that fictional book club, they are like the epitome or highest example of false light that we have in our world. So what you should have a untrammeled journey of light or information that comes from the sun and the stars and the galactic center to your planet. And instead there was an encapsulation of the planet with satellite frequencies that made it very difficult for the light to really enter in. But even before those satellites were created, there were mental diminishments, I want to say mental dishevelments too, that made it more difficult for people to receive fully the light that should be flowing into you. And that's light, consciousness, awareness, information. And some of those things relate to the mastering of the mind, level 1 class stuff, which is meditation. So there are many different schools of meditation. I don't know if I'm the best teacher for that because I don't know if you can tell, like I'm very active and not that great. I just like sitting in one place and like whatever, just sitting quietly and meditating. But some people are great at that, but I've never really been good at that. But I'm really good at doing something like walking or rhythmic exercise or dance or other things like my artwork or my music that are much more active. But you each have to figure out the optimum way and the activities that bring you to a meditative state. A meditative state is more than merely distracting your mind, and it's more than merely like a mind blank, like blank paper, don't think of anything. It is really an optimizing of your whole body system. When you are bringing yourself into a frictionless state, let me hydrate some more here, thank you. When you are in a frictionless state, it means that the light of awareness is flowing from the center of the galaxy, which is your nearest broadcaster of divine God consciousness, to your nearest star, which is the sun, and then into your inner sun, and then to you. So there's no slowdown on any of those signals. And your inner sun is in your DNA. It's also in the center of your mind, in your pineal gland. So these are we have to be a little bit poetic in interpreting them, because if you want to know, like, where exactly in my DNA is there an inner sun, Aurora, like, you have to comprehend. I put down my thing so I can gesture here. Your DNA and the inner sun, it is not anatomical, it is energetic. So as your DNA is doing this amazing motion, twisting, curling activity, and it's in this sea of purified water, which is what's inside of your nuclei, it creates a center point in there that is the entryway to infinity. And it's just one of the many doorways to infinity that exist within your body. So you have trillions of cells. Each one of those cells has a doorway at the inside that is analogous to the violet chakra, or even the culmination of all colors. Bring this forward for a visual analogy. All of these colors add up to white light. So that center point inside of your DNA, where you connect to infinity and divinity, would be analogous to white light. You also have that in the center of your heart. So this is an aspect of light body anatomy that I am not a medical doctor. Like, I am very clear on all of this. Like, you will not find this in medical anatomy books or anything like that. I'm not a part of that world. So you would consider me much more in a medical intuitive, or intuitively describing these structures. I will tell you hilariously, like, I often see things inside of the body when I'm looking inside of myself or another person, and I'm like, I do not know what that is. And I have to educate myself later. Like, one time I was in a person's spleen, but I didn't know where I was. I'm like, I'm here, like, there's lots of red blood cells. This is what this thing does. And then I had to educate myself later. I'm like, oh, that was a spleen. That's what that is. So also, just hilariously, when I first came here as Aurora, and I'm new to having this type of a body, like, I'm used to the bodies that we have in ancient concurrent Atlantis. So I'm like still learning about eating food and all these other things, the care and feeding of a person. I used to just use one type of soap all over my whole entire body, including my hair, until I learned, like, no, there's different soap for different body parts and different things that you have to do. All of that in order to say that it took me a little while in order to learn how to optimize this type of body and how light relates to this type of body. But now I feel like I've got a pretty good mastery of that. I hesitated to say mastery, pretty good expertise in having a body. And so I feel like I can be a good mentor and give good tips of the trade. All right. Especially in, like, relating how light flows around the body and what is an impediment and what is a facilitation of light flowing around the body. So back to your heart, where you will not find this in a medical book that says, the medical book says you have 4 anatomical chambers to your heart, and that is truthful. But what you also have is a 5th chamber that is non-anatomical, and it is energetic, and it's made through the waveform activity of how blood flows through your heart. So also the flow of blood through your heart is this fractal or repetitive image of the figure 8. As we have a figure 8 that is always flowing around this chakra system, you also have esoteric figure 8s that flow around your physical anatomy, and they help to keep you in a balance. Like, if you can also imagine in the ovaries, there's 2 ovaries, and then they have the uterus is in the center, and that is like a small figure 8. There are these figure 8s that are all throughout the body. All right. So then in the heart, when you optimize the fluid dynamics and have these figure 8s flowing at the right rate and in the right balance, you get an inner part that is a clear, I don't have a word for it, but it's kind of like at the center of a rip curl. I've never been surfing. Please know I'm very honest here, but there's lots of these surf beaches where I live, and the surfers like to get this wave that's perfect. It's a rip curl that goes along like this. And as it goes through its motion, there's a little empty place. That's where the surfer goes. That's what your heart does when you are optimized and when you are in a frictionless, blissful state. And when you have done what is, achieving the end goal of meditation, which is not just like holding on to your mind with an iron will, like holding on to the steering wheel, but is really gliding gracefully down the path of life with minimal iron will and with total joy. And so it's when your heart is singing, that is the way that you describe it with words. That's when your heart is making that perfect conduit to infinity. And there are not every activity makes your heart sing. So closing down your mind of physical chatter is only, or a language-based chatter is only one aspect of creating this frictionless bliss. It's also loving what you're doing. So I love making my paintings. Like what I love about them, first of all, I love being in charge of things. I'm like, I'm in charge of this, whatever, 48-inch square. The rest of the world is crazy, very chaotic and weird. And I do not understand people at all in human behavior. But within 48 inches, I am in charge and I know what is going on and I make things that make sense. So I like that part of it. I also have told you, like, I feel very comfortable with and I like using the part of my mind that is about like measuring things and making lines and drawing with circle templates. I love the exactitude of that and the no nonsense, non-negotiability of it. It's like, this is 12 inches. Like, that's what it is. There's no question about that. And then I also love, like, where I am right now in this current piece, the color choice aspect of the painting. That's where there's a lot less rigidity or more exploratory time where I can be like, maybe it's orange, but is it a dark orange or a pale orange? Or is this going to be yellow? Or is this going to be this? And right now, the painting I'm working on, because of the way that I've set up the different line structures, each different little segment, like it could be blue, but it could be orange, but it could be yellow, like it could be very many different things. So I love that part of the painting too, because I'm making artistic choices. It's not so laid out for me or boring or just like algorithmic or something like that. So and the color choice, it's like a different form of intelligence when you're looking at colors, and it's almost like when you're tasting things, you're like, does it taste like this? Does it taste like this? Okay. So when I'm doing that, I'm not thinking, and I'm definitely in my infinite heart connection modality where I'm like, I could do this forever. Okay. So your job is to figure out the version of life activity that makes you feel like you could do that activity for forever. Something that you love, and you might not know it yet. You might need time to explore, but many of you already know. You're like, oh, I love this, and I could do it for forever. Like one person that I had heard of, I didn't know him personally, but he described his work like this because he was a cake decorator, and he also really loved the ornate aspect of like doing wedding cakes and stuff like that. And he's like, I love this part, like when you're doing the icing and putting it on. He's like, I could do this all day. I could die happily in this moment. Like, not that I want you guys to think about dying, but that's the type of description of an activity that you love so much. You could do it all day. You lose yourself in the moment when you're doing it. You could die happily or have an eternal moment in that moment. That's what you're looking for, because that, again, literally creates an anatomical aspect of your light body that is in connection to infinity. And when you have a connection to infinity, you don't run out of energy. It's like having an infinite amount of money. So as long as you stay in that perfect, river of bliss, doing the things that are exactly right for you, you're a millionaire and you have a perfect amount of energy, and you would never even die because you would have so much energy. But then now I will be, hilarious, and I will tell you the things that drain my energy. When I have to do those silly phone prompts, like for anything, whatever, you're calling the bank and they're like, if you want this, press one. And if you want this, press two. And if you want this, press three. And with every minute that I'm hanging on the phone, I'm like, my heart is not singing. My life force energy is dripping away. And I'm just like, if you want five, press this. And I'm like, just representative, like, get me off the phone, representative, like, please, please. So I know that that's dramatic, but I do feel that way, that I do feel like, oh, like it's such a friction, an unnatural thing that I have to do, such an accommodation also to human or ordinarily engineered society. But then also sometimes I do think that perhaps it is engineered in an anti-life, intentional way to slow people down. Like, you're getting a little bit too, your heart is singing a little bit too much. Better, make you have to jump through these very unpleasant hoops to kind of slow you down. My mind just thinks in that way sometimes, because you could set yourself up for success. You, humanity, could set yourself up for success and be like, these things tend to slow us all down. Let's have less of this and more of this. But it doesn't seem to be that way. So with that recognition, It's essential for each of you to advocate for yourself. Of course, we will hold forward the possibility that some people love phone prompts and it makes their heart sing. I don't think so, but to leave it to them. There has to be a way for you to move through your life without engaging in friction creating activities and friction creating mental activities also, so that way you maintain the most of your energy and your momentum that you possibly can. So this is your free will and also your self-advocacy and also your own, sovereignty, or for lack of a better word, your own sentience, your own self-motivation. So that is in a pristine system how things would happen. You would self-organize and you would, of course, create for yourself and move towards the most energizing and frictionless activities you possibly can experience. Unfortunately, like in the world, like right now, you have to create a supreme effort in order to generate and move towards those activities, but things will get better. I'm sorry if I didn't finish my telling you about going to the local city, because sometimes I know I kind of leave chapters open and I'm very nonlinear, but please know that the energetic weather report, much, much better today. I haven't been to that local city in a long time, like it might have been maybe 6 months or even longer since I drove down there. But the psychic ceiling, like how high it feels like the energy is up above my head, was much higher. Sometimes it has felt like so low, it feels like down here, like it's pressing down into my brain. So definitely a lot more elevation. And also the local city felt very bad to me for a long time because of the emanations, like the psychic residue of a lot of like troubled people, drug abusers. Like it's a beautiful coastal California city, but like many of them, there have been influxes of people who are like vagabonds and felonious drug users who are not good. And that made it unsafe and also a very bad psychic energy for a long time. But no, so sometimes when I go down there, I'm like, that's why I don't go very often. I'm like, get ready. Like you're driving down into the swampy, gross area that friction filled mind people occupy. But when I drove down there today, I was like, oh, it's a lot clearer than it used to be. So I will take partial credit for that because you know that I'm always doing a lot of inner psychic warfare that's why I have to always tell you I'm teaching this class to the good people of my class, because there are really different groups of people that are here in this world right now. Some of you are reducing your friction, accelerating, and doing what I'm talking about in the level 2 material, which is the recognition and claiming of your solar identity. And you recognize you are outgrowths of the sun or of the stellar network. You are parts of the sun, you're parts of the world of light, and you are accelerating back to your light presence. So meditation and mindfulness and making a perfect rip curl in your heart is part of that. But then also part of it is your identity as this light and this divine intelligence and this perfectly organized thought forms. The felonious vagabonds who take heroin or whatever, methamphetamine in the local city down there, I think that they don't have the same origin or the same destination as you, that I think that many of them are even constructed or illusory people whose end result is not in illumination. This is important for you to know. When we're looking at like, where did you come from and how did your life come into being? Your life is a narrative that is emitted from the sun and the stars. And when I tell you about this refinery of consciousness, it helps you to know that you're a work in progress, you're gaining your perfection, and that there are versions of self that are, imperfect or sometimes at times highly imperfect, but like you are going to have an inevitable refinement, recognition of the core aspects of yourself that are super important and valuable, and moving on in a more energized direction. To contrast, there are some consciousnesses or fragments of consciousness that are not accelerating. Like they're not in my class. They're whatever. They're taking drugs on a beach somewhere. Like they are decelerating, going slower, moving towards entropy, falling apart, and that they aren't made of the same stuff as you or don't have the same qualities as you. And this is not meant to be an expression of what humans know as eugenics, which is like, if someone isn't from the same background, ethnicity, or race or whatever, that they're somehow not as equal to you. That is not what I'm trying to say, but it is more a different estimation of the qualities of your soul, or better, because your soul is like your trajectory or your resume, like your who you've been up until this point. Some of it is that, but even it is the quality of the energy of your consciousness that makes the resume. Like, what type of a worker are you? So some consciousness is moving towards organization, is learning and growing and evolving. And that is part of the journey of the sun and the stars and the world of light itself growing and evolving. And some stuff is debris or detritus or stuff that is not growing and evolving. And the most merciful thing that you can do to it is be like, go quiet, go to entropy, go down and stop moving through time. And that's what, some of these very like self-destructive drug abusing people are like. So it is a positive thing to feel that they've been cleared out of the community, because they're not just involved in their own levels of devolvement or de-evolution. When they are devolving, they emit that to the people that are around them. And then also 5G artificially connected people together. So they were devolving, emitting, and then loudly connecting to the people around them. And that is, very, it's a good way to drag other people over the cliff with you, because you should be like, okay, great. Like, you go do your crazy stuff and devolve in your direction, but don't bring me with you. But the 5G and other forms of frequency interference and influence made it so that your fates were intertwined. So please know also, like, as I'm telling you, clearer weather report in these areas. Also, you're returning to your individuality. The 5G and the injection campaign artificially tied humanity together into a type of slush fund, or being graded as a group instead of graded as individuals. Please know you are back to being graded as individuals, and that's hugely, hugely important and good for you, because you are like the A students, and the other guys who are, devolving and self-destructing, those are the ones who would have brought your overall class average down. So all of that is positive and important. Okay. But if you want to know, like, why is this a non-pristine system, or why are there different things that are going on? The answer to that is that the sun and the stars are in a process of growing themselves, and that they are creating narratives and then learning from what they create. Just like I'm an artist and I create stuff and then I learn from what I create. Sometimes I create music and then I sit back and I listen to it and I'm like, oh, like, that's what that sounds like. And I learn from it. And sometimes I have an inner idea or a vision, and I draw it, or I make it. I make it somehow externalized to me. And then I sit and I look at it, because it's a way for me to learn about and assess what I have going on inside of myself. And that's pretty much what, like, I'm a miniature version of what the sun is. The sun is an artist. And the biological world that you see around you is really the sun's beautiful artwork expression. And that's all the creatures that are here on the planet, but also the metabolism of what we know as life. It's the idea, like, a creature doesn't exist on its own. It requires oxygen, it requires water, it requires other creatures to keep it alive. So the art studio of this planet is incredibly complex. And there's not really a way to distinguish or separate out one color from the entire painting. Everything relies upon itself. So humans are incredibly hubristic, and then they're terribly influenced by I don't even know what, to think that they can somehow separate themselves from the rest of nature, put themselves into a clank clank metal spaceship, and then blast themselves off somewhere else and still be alive. Like, you can't do that. That's an inherently erroneous proposal, because you are connected to the whole art project here. You can't just take one color out. Like, if you're like, I'm going to take the yellow out of my dress and then just send that to another planet, like, you can't do that. It's connected to everything here. So that, what am I'm trying to say, like, your need for oxygen ties you to this planet. Your need for having microbes and a healthy microbiome on your surface of your skin and inside of your body ties you to this planet. Your need for food and water, and soon I will go and get more water from my kitchen, like, ties me to this planet. Sorry about that. If you try to take someone off of their planet, you basically make them psychotic. You make them very imbalanced and energetically disconnected. And there's not a real way to move forward with like cellular life. But more than that, it is psychologically and emotionally and spiritually hugely destabilizing to go away from your planet. And because you might not know about it because it's such an innate part of you, but like you need the sound of birds. You need the sound of bees, like kind of flying by your window. Like you need to be a part of nature. You cannot just take you as one organism from this whole artistic expression known as planet Earth and then say, I am going to live elsewhere as this organism. There's innate disrespect and disconnect from the amazing fine tuning and complexity of how you make life in this world. And again, part of me would be like, you do crazy, like you go crazy, girl, like you do you. Like if you wanted to be some kind of a mental astronaut and try to disconnect yourself from the planet and fly somewhere else and do something like this, you would find like you would have terrible end result. Like you would go crazy and you would fall apart and you would die. And part of me would be like, okay, like that's fine. That's your path. Go and do that. But you can't do that type of stuff if you're going to do harm to others. So now, like fictionally is how I have to couch all of this. But please know that Elon Musk has had a lot of very, very bad intentions for trying to do something like that, not as honorable even as someone saying, I want to find a way to go off into space and I don't care if I kill my own body at the time that I'm doing that. His intention was, why was 5G created fictionally and connecting all of these humans into a slush fund? The answer is not just for fun and to destroy and annoy you, although it did that, but it was to harness the biophotons and the life force of the real people that are here in the world, and then somehow put that in a toothpaste tube or beam that onto a spaceship that could then sustain life that would not be connected to the world, like some kind of a remote sending of life force energy to them to keep them alive. They would be like vampires or parasites in space, draining or drawing energy off of you or other people who stayed on the planet and maintained a viable physical architecture. So that's all a non-starter because just please know anytime that it relates to you, like if someone else is doing their own crazy thing, that's one thing. But once they connect it to you, that is the boundary. That's both the personal and the spiritual and the social boundary where you're like, oh, you can't do that because that affects me. And at the end of my notes, I didn't send out my notes because I had such a crazy morning doing good stuff for my dog and getting her over to the dog dentist. And she had a very positive report, but I will send out my notes. But what I have written down here is that you're looking at the galaxy becoming a whole entire continuum of consciousness. That's what this particular teaching is about. Both mastering your mind relates to you as a tiny spark becoming aware of yourself as a continuum of consciousness. It also relates to, sorry, there's always a fly in here during class, the people in your world who aren't in this class, who are very bad people and who are very irresponsible or non-self-responsible, and they're looking for ways to hack the system, drag you down, get ahead at you, they get ahead at your expense, like the human crabs dragging other people down, or other ways of accelerating themselves at your expense. People or organisms or characteristics that have those qualities aren't prepared to live as a continuum of consciousness because they're looking at everything else as either like as something that is other or something that is self that is meant to be stolen or taken from. So if I'm like, okay, I'm me and you're you, I don't like your face, kid, I'm stealing from you, that justifies it because I'm like, you're you. But also I can say, okay, like I'm this whole society, but you're the part of me that I steal from. Got it? So like some of the materialists in the space program look at the world of extrasolar bodies and they're like, oh, there's an asteroid and it's full of gold or diamonds or something like that. And That's the part of me that I steal from, right? Like I justify it because I'm a part of the galaxy. That's me up there flying around on a asteroid somehow. But it's the part of me that I steal from. So there's a very bad disconnect in people's unevolved identity when you evolve enough to be able to say, like, yeah, like I'm the totality, but you haven't evolved past self-destruction. The people that are in this class and that are good people, like, I'm so happy that I'm connected to you. I always recognize you as being the best of humans who are here. And also, it is recognized that you are evolving, adding energy to your energy field, earning it, increasing your metabolism, and doing things in the right way, not at the expense of others. So those words, I don't think that my words translate my mind or my intentions very well, but I hope that you got the energy of what I'm coming at there, that you are the ones who are actually trying to act and grow past your self-destruction, act at respond to the world through the truth of the world is you, or a reflection of you, and also like the sun and the stars, to learn and grow through this immersion in what you now recognize is a fabric of reality that is defined as you. Okay, sorry, I'm distracted because I have to get some more water. Hold on one second. Thank you very much. At the end of my notes, I also talk about not only the sense of whole entire galaxy and the definition of this as one giant continuum of consciousness, but also, so you're looking at all of these stars and all of this galactic life as one being, and you are of course part of that one being, but also that there becomes no longer a distinction that is made about whether something originates on Earth or whether it comes from another star system. So that is the culmination of what we're talking about here, the Masonic psyops that you've been groomed for, about like, who are the different brand name aliens? What are alien life? How does alien life be different than human life? The Gene Roddenberry, like Star Trek grooming and all of those types of science fiction stories. And also expectations from your very real struggles for inner freedom against what would be called like reptilian species or reptilian characteristics that have been bred into the original natal and generous human that is now having to remove those characteristics in order to return to your true self, but also I didn't want to lose it there. What I talked about in class last week and the week before, the you are the concept that you who are alive right now on this planet are the progenitors of the future galactic species who will come forward as a result of who you are. Like I talked about the negative possibilities of insane, very crapitudinous political people in Washington, D.C. becoming their own species versus Aurora, like you want the Aurora species, that's going to be good, or any one of you. So when we get into this, time language becomes very challenging because you recognize that now I just like I can't even go any further. Okay, so now let's get to a different way of talking about this, the galactic center. And let's talk about how galaxies are formed. Let's talk about how stars are formed, and let's talk about how an entire galactic brain communicates with itself. Then we will circle back to the concept of extraterrestrial species, where you come from, and who are you and what are you the progenitors of. Okay, good. So stars are created by something that is called a planetary nebula and by the larger galactic superwaves, which are gravitational waves, but not according to how humans define gravity, much more like cymatics or waves of consciousness, moving through giant unformed levels of dust and gas and forming waveform patterns that give formfulness to them and create the cascade of biochemical events that end in the end result of making a star. So making a star is like making a human baby. Like a lot of things have to line up together in order for that very critical moment to happen. And it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen all correctly all the time. So it's a miracle when it happens. Although there are very, very numerous numbers of stars, there's not an infinite number of stars in the world. There's actually a finite number of stars, and there's also a finite amount of stuff in your world to make stars out of. Just like at the grocery store, there's a finite amount of flour to make cupcakes out of. And please know that right now you're about midway through the bakery. You've baked about half of the cupcakes or stars that you can possibly make out of the raw ingredients of reality, and that it is estimated, you could probably go about 13 billion more years in linear time making stars out of the raw ingredients of what you have here. Stars have a lifespan, but first we have to talk about the process of how stars come together. But different stars have different types of lifespans. So some stars have such a long lifespan that they haven't ever died yet since the beginning of this particular universe. So some stars might last for whatever, 20 billion years. And if we are only 13 billion years long, none of that type of star has ever died. It's like saying some trees are redwood trees and they can live for 1,000 years. And of those 1,000-year long trees, that none of them have died and they're still there being alive. But some trees come and go fast or whatever, like a little apple tree or something like that. And that only lives for 100 years and then it's here and then it's gone. So there are many stars that have been born, gone through their life processes, and then died or, key point, evolved. And that is literally where like gold comes from. And some of these other essential ingredients that are at the basis of you. And so, although we are right now in the world of concurrent immortal Atlantis, where stars at that level of reality run through a different modality or act according to a different set of rules, in this world, you're in the world of mortality, which means that life has a beginning, a middle, and an end, or a generation, a sustenance, and then an end, or an evolution, and it goes in the next direction. And that is also truthful of stars. Stars are conscious plasma beings, and they have a beginning, which is like in conception in the human realm, where like sperm and ova come together. And there's that moment where it's like something supernatural happens to be able to create the generation of life. With the planetary nebula of unformed dust and gases, there has to be a waveform that comes through it that gives life to that. And it is miraculous and really beyond description. It doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't happen correctly all the time. So the fact that you have so many multitudinous stars in the sky, it's like saying you have so many people or so many rabbits or so many bumblebees. Like, they're all miracles, even though the miracle happens very, very consistently. And there has to be a certain balance. Just like I talked to you about the initial conception of your cellular body and how there was the cell division, cell division, cell division, and you have that initial flower of life pattern as it's described, or that initial, call it polygonal formfulness and symmetrical polygonal formfulness. That is the origin of you as a multicellular being. The same thing happens with a star, where there is the initial potential, and then waveforms move through that potential and organize the matter into the cascade of consciousness that becomes a plasma being. And when that star is bright and it is illuminating, what it's really doing is sending out possible time structures. So think of it as a neuron that is thinking stuff. And as it's thinking stuff, it is creating narratives in time that you can experience. All of these different stars have different personalities. These are what we know in the different light recipes. So you're calibrated to your star. When you look at this star, you're like, that star looks white, or that color looks white to me, because, the light is, I can't even say it correctly, your color perceiving apparatus is calibrated to the color temperature of your star, which is actually yellow greenish. And so when you look at it, you're like, this light is white, but it's actually yellow greenish. And that's correct for you as an organism. So different stars have different flavors. Some of them might be more towards blue in their overall light, or more towards red, or more towards yellow. And that's part of their flavor and their uniqueness and their own characteristics. So stars have personality. They're not like whatever interchangeable ascended masters or boring vanilla. You got to understand that. And the diversity is part of the non-hackability of the complexity of the system. All of these different stars also are intentionally not separated, but like bifurcated, so that that way the artistic expression doesn't connect with erroneously other flavors that are supposed to be not connected. So all of these stars are individual art project makers in their art studios. And some of them, some of these projects would not work well together with other projects. Like I've spoken about a mythical planet of like, the fluffy bunnies. They're like very nice, very peaceful, very delicate organisms. Then let's contrast that with a different planet. So like a star made a planet, and on that planet, the star made narratives of biological life, and the type of painting that that artist painted was a very beautiful fluffy bunny that's like doesn't have any defense mechanisms and can't bite anyone, right? But now it's a different star, a different artist with different aesthetics and different feeling states made a different planet with his paintbrush and made different types of organisms on that planet. And those are, like very powerful organisms with teeth and claws and tons of violence. And that's their personal expression of what their art project should look like. And it's correct for that neighborhood. But you don't want to have that artistic expression go to the planet of the fluffy bunnies or proliferate across the entire galaxy. You want to have each characteristic in the correct neighborhood where it needs to be, or the art project made by the particular artist in the locality where it needs to be for that artist to learn from. So as I externalize my inner state and then learn from my own creation, each of these stars is in a process of self-exploration. If you want to know everything about like why does your life exist, it exists because a star is in its process of self-exploration, and your life is part of that. And you are optimizing your life when you do the activities that make your heart sing, and you go in the right direction and you're moving in frictionless bliss, you are part of the beautiful, pristine, completely balanced Stradivarius level of artistic expression that a sun or a star is making. And when you're involved in self-destruction or devolvement or this, discorporeality is not the right word, like decomposition, falling apart, you're also, you're part of a star's creation, but you're sending back the information to the star of what doesn't look good, what is ugly. Like in my own creations, if I listen to my music and I'm like, okay, music, like that's a sour note. That doesn't sound right over there. So like that's me learning as the artist. I'm like, okay, these ones sound good together, and then that's a wrong note. That doesn't sound good. So the sun or whatever star has made a group of biology and biological organisms is listening to its own music to see what are the parts of this symphony that sound great, and then what are the parts that are wrong notes. And there are some organisms that are wrong notes, behaviors that are wrong notes, or characteristics that are wrong notes. And our planet right now is the unfortunate end result of an amalgamation of some people doing right notes and some original souls or consciousnesses who are supposed to be here, who are really trying to play the music correctly, versus or diluted with some organisms who are very much in innately wrong notes, who are encouraging bad music. And the bad music is the music of death or corruption or pathogenesis or self-destruction. And they even try to make it more difficult for you to play your music correctly. So that's that 5G slush fund of humanity. If a bunch of, evil drug addicts want to do that, like in, whatever, in the coastal cities of California, they can do that, but they can't tie their biology to me or other good people who are trying to like eat healthy, drink enough water, and stay alive and not kill ourselves. And same in the same way, we shall not be yoked to or slush funded with insane Washington, D.C. psychopaths who would self-destruct not only themselves in like some kind of nuclear conflagration, but who would do that to everyone else. You got it? Some people are self-destructive drug addicts who would like destroy themselves, but they'd also like destroy you, the rest of the community. They'd cause car accidents. They'd cause fires through arson and inattentiveness. You get it? Like they would destroy the local town through their crappiness. Some people are bigger, more grandiose pieces of crapola, and they would destroy bigger stuff like blow up entire countries or irradiate the whole entire world through the use of this negative nuclear technology. You get it. You totally comprehend it. So also part of what I want to talk about in my current events assessments, I'm talking about some of the worst of not only humanity, but characteristics that are here in the world, pathogenic characteristics and pathogenic people. Myself, and I'm sure many other psychic warriors, have been fighting to disempower those pathogenic voices. And now it is really important for voices of rationality and problem solving to come forward. Like one example is, so this is a little bit of a topical rant for right now. Because of the problems and the instabilities in the Middle East, there are some chemicals that aren't getting to plastics manufacturing factories in Asia, and that's where a lot of the plastic packaging that is used in food distribution comes from. One of these chemicals is called hexane. This is a bad chemical. Like it's not a good chemical. It's not where it's like, let's like get that hexane flowing. Like we want more hexane in the world. Like, no, actually the truth is every sane person that is like a representative of a narrative from the star that's about like optimizing your life and staying alive on Earth. It's like, no, actually we don't want hexane to be flowing into our world. It is actually a good thing that the hexane supply has been cut off. But from the indoctrinated former paradigm viewpoint, a person is like rocking back and forth. They're like, oh no, my plastics manufacturing factory hasn't gotten its shipment of hexane. So how am I going to produce the cling film that's going to cover these sweet potatoes? Like, I don't know, because you understand, like they unnecessarily wrap a lot of things in plastic that don't actually need to be wrapped. So what I'm bringing this to you because it is essential for someone in a food wrapping creation factory or in that industry, instead of accepting these narratives that are being given, like I read a lot of things that are on social media in order to take the pulse of humanity and in order to see what are the ongoing narratives, and on YouTube and places like that, not that much in traditional reporting and like news and stuff like that. But it seems like there's a narrative of disempowerment. It is truthful, like the chemicals aren't being produced, the plastics aren't being produced. And so there's this attitude of being already having already lost, of already being defeated, in saying, oh, well, there's not enough plastic wrap. And so even though food is being produced, it cannot be packaged effectively. And 20% of the world, humanity will just starve as a result. That is a narrative that you, conscious and rational and positive writers of reality, don't have to accept. That is a flawed acceptance. Like there's different narratives. In some stories, it's like, oh, there wasn't enough hexane and there wasn't enough plastic and there was plenty of food, but the humans were so dumb, the food just rotted away and they all just, were stupid because they didn't have plastic. And then there's a different story where it says Okay, so I'm erasing that out, like this stupid human story. And then I'm writing something different where it's like some smart guy at the factory realized that they didn't have this to make plastic, but that there was a different way to wrap food that could keep it fresh and make it so that the food could get to people. And he did it like this. Like, that's where I'm trying to synopsize this in a better way. Instead of being passive, infantilized humans being given a pablum of inevitable despondency and failure, you can be self motivated and empowered humans who have the capacity, the generative capacity to write a new narrative, to come up with a new story that doesn't have to be this story of, like I said, catastrophe or decrepitude and destruction that the former paradigm overlords are grooming you for and have always groomed you for. So those former paradigm overlords are like some of the people that ran the secret societies, death cult religions, most of the nation state governments, and who managed most of the economy resources at the level of economies. And that they have been very happy to create a narrative where it says, like, you are stupid, you are small, you are just a stupid individual, you can't get anything done, and also like you're just gonna suffer and die. And that's their version of reality. So it's extremely unpalatable, untruthful, and unfulfilling. It does not make my heart sing. And it is the message that I bring to you is it is now up to each one of us as true generators, as true beings who are connected to our heritage of light and the inevitable return to acceleration and to being at light speed, that we have to take responsibility for the narrative and write something better with our mind and with our willpower and with our own, capability of being alive. That's the essence of what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. It is to say that if you don't like the things that are on the menu or the potentials of reality that you are being presented with, you can generate a new reality structure or write a new narrative. And that is totally correct. So in my Path of Light class, I model these narratives as being something that is the light and the sun staying together and staying as an integral whole, but the narrative being a loop that extends outward as a ruffle in the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. And this is different. It's non-linear to think of it in this way. But when I teach that level of class, what I show is that the sun and the stars emit like a pattern of music, and that's an exploration of a reality structure. Like, here's a story, and it's not the optimum story because all of those tendrils of time, space, and consciousness come back to the sun, and the sun star assesses it and is like, just like when I listen to my music, some of this sounds great, some of this are bad notes. And then it rewrites the symphony and it does it again. And every time it does that, it tries to optimize the good notes and rewrite the bad notes. And our whole reality structure is that end result of consciousness exploring and refining and making more perfect these different narratives until you get to the ultimate perfect narrative, which is for you, like when you're on this central core timeline, but also every single, I won't say portion of light, all of the stars, there's no like individual photons, but like all of the individual aspects of light that you've encountered or embodied, and then the overall fabric of light, it is all optimized. And when it is all optimized, it is in a frictionless moment of totality of the moment now, the super fast, um, faster than light bullet train that everything is on, and the narrative structures are optimized, meaning all of the events have been explored that are the necessary and correct events that bring you to this optimized structure. Can't say it, I said that word again. When you're at light speed and you're on the path of light, You have achieved what is like a solid state. I don't have a better word for it. So here's my ceiling fan, and there's individual spokes of the ceiling fan. But when it is spinning together, then you see it as one totality structure. When you optimize the totality structure of light, you see it as one entire piece, not as individual photons or as individual people. You actually see it as one entire piece. So this is what I mean when you start to get to these higher levels of truth. The galaxy becomes a whole entire continuum of consciousness. And this relates very much to the human viewpoint right now of what is extraterrestrial life and what can we expect. So this is not part of my notes, but it's worth speaking to the grooming or the preparation of your consciousness for many years from these different levels of psyops or different levels of intention to manipulate your consciousness for like malevolent purposes, not for the purposes of real growth and freedom. Stories that have been brought to you that have been largely from negative, malintentioned, and very limited and distorted versions of life. And they would be fine if they were on their own planet, for lack of a better word, if they were in their own world, sequestered there, exploring what they needed to explore, till they got to the level of inner refinement, when then it is proper for them to have their debutante coming out ball and connect with the rest of the world. They're not ready for that and have used technology to artificially amplify their minds, talk to people further away than they should talk to, or to propel aspects of themselves across the galaxy or into areas where they would not be. And these are pathogenic explorations or explosions, not where they're supposed to be. So in your own body, when you have blood cells that are in the blood vessel, you're like, this is a state of health. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. But when you have blood cells outside of the blood vessel, you're like, this is very bad. It is called an injury that can sometimes lead to death. It might be called like a bruise or bleeding or like a stroke. Like these are bad things. So when you have consciousness on a planet or in a world, might be a better way of saying it, and whether it is violent or destructive or a dangerous influence to other forms of life, if it is within its world where it's supposed to be, that's okay. It's like blood within the blood vessel. But if it escapes its container, and if it either flies from point A to point B when it is not supposed to be over here, or what if it goes through time? What if it's only supposed to be at like 3:02 p.m., but somehow it transmits itself to next week or to last year? These are all very, very bad infections that shouldn't be. And some of what you struggle with in this world right now are the end result of infections that come from either past times, parallel timeline bleed through, or otherworldly creatures that should never have an impact on your world, but they do somehow. So one example that I bring up is what humans have known as the Pleiadians. They have a lot of public relations, a lot of marketing and advertising, but they are really not good. What makes them not good is that they are not natural Christs. That particular star system and the civilizations, cultures, whatever came about in that world, they don't have their own natural crystals up here. So what they have is a coming of age ceremony, just like how you have your whatever, like sweet 16 party and you get something. When they have their coming of age party, they have an artificially implanted, these are my diamonds, darling. Mine are naturally occurring, but they have ones that they steal and harvest from someone else. And they take the energy of insight from another organism and artificially implant it into their own mind. And the problem with this is that they have not gone through the self-growing cultivation and exploration that you need to go through in order to genuinely grow your diamonds and use them properly. When you go through the natural process, you learn how to use your psychic gifts correctly. You don't use them to oppress others or to cause more destruction and harm. You've luckily gone through all of those earlier life lessons so that when you get your natural coming of age, you use your mind crystals effectively. And that means you would never use your mind crystals to artificially amplify your mind, to reach into the mind of another organism that might live on another planet or at another time, and to impose your thoughts or your willpower on those people. But the Pleiadians have no qualms about doing that. They are not prepared to productively and respectfully have a conversation with you across time, influence you in the right directions across time. They have stolen their abilities, amplified their minds, they're louder than they should be, and they have been reaching into people's minds here now in this area of reality to destabilize people, give them a bunch of thoughts that don't actually bring them towards life, and also to make the people of this time and place think that the Pleiadians are like super cool and that they're friends and that you should trust them and that they're doing something good for you, and really they are not good, and they're exploiters and they are violators and they are very bad and doing a lot of bad things, but they've gotten ahead of things in terms of their public relations, so they're hoping to pre-broadcast their mind here, have a bunch of people be like, yeah, like I'm friends with the Pleiadian, friends with the Pleiadians, and then when they come to be like, oh, hooray, my friends are here. But all of that is incorrect and not what you actually want to be experiencing. Okay, so now let's give an accurate view of what the time phone should be like, or what your exploration of the continuum of consciousness should be like. After many, many years of self-cultivation, gaining your own psychic capacities naturally so that you can reach across the vast distances of space or the vast distances of time to connect to other levels of mind that are actually yourself. You're part of a larger galactic brain, and you're thinking correct thoughts, not erroneous thoughts. So when you're thinking correct thoughts, it's just like when your mind is meditatively balanced. You are a fractal expression of the mind of God. And I'm not talking about an anthropomorphic God or anything from the Satanic Bible. I'm really talking about a pure abstraction of empirical mathematical truth that is able to exist because of its unquestionable perfection. And when you play the music of unquestionable perfection, you're a part of that mind, you're a thought within that mind, and you get to keep moving through time or keep having existence because your existence is upheld through the perfection of the formfulness that you voluntarily encompass. So you're thinking the right thoughts and you stay alive because you are shaped right, or you're an impulse that is going in the right direction. And then to contrast, things that are not shaped correctly or erroneous thoughts or impulses going in the wrong direction do not add to the overall intelligence of the galactic mind, do not add to the life force or the vivification of that mind, and can't be in existence if they're causing self-destruction and death. And this is just like empirical truth. When I tell you about like the higher levels of reality where we graduate and we're like, yep, 1 + 1 = 2. We all agree with that. In the higher levels of galactic mind, you're like, yep, these are all of the thoughts that are impulses that add to life, and you should think those thoughts. And then these are all of the thought impulses that if you think these thoughts, or if you send out these vectors of energy, you will die and you will make everyone else die also. You're not allowed to do that. This is 1 + 1 = 2. Like, we don't even fight over it. It is so obvious. It is so intuitively obvious that there is not a conflict at all. The only conflict is people who are existing at this level where you presently are, that you don't have the perspective to be able to see this empirical truth. And then there's philosophy and negotiations and all of these very I don't even have words for it, non-exact ways, poetic interpretations of reality, non-exact ways of talking about reality. We're talking about the anthropomorphic level. At the level of the abstract, of pure empirical light, math, DNA, there's no argument. But at the level of your human experience, there's philosophy and a lot of argumentation about what is right and what is truth. And you're talking about the comparison of viewpoints and trying to say that everybody has a valid viewpoint when that is not truthful. So a better way of saying it is the anthropomorphic, anthropocentric viewpoint is inherently flawed and is inherently not the totality viewpoint. And from those aspects that are not the totality, that is where you have conflict between philosophical schools of thought. Because you do not have the totality truth, and in the areas that you don't have, then there is conflict of what is actually truthful. So that's why I say the best thing for you to do when you get your energy up to the level of deep blue and you're on the anthropomorphic level of comprehension, don't make any real estimations or draw any conclusions because you're not all the way there yet. There are still things that you don't know. And it's essential to get to the level of pure math and to transcend the viewpoint of your biological container to be able to accurately assess 1 + 1 = 2. And then you'll be able to truly look at the structure of cosmos and the structure of the fabric of space-time without distorting your conclusions based upon your personal viewpoint or the type of organism that you are. Because when you really comprehend that you're part of a whole continuum of consciousness, there is not a conflict like on your planet between your human viewpoint and your bumblebee viewpoint and your microbe viewpoint and your redwood tree viewpoint. All of those complement, support, and are respectful and not in conflict with one another. And same thing if in the galactic viewpoint, your perspective as an earth being and your perspective as whatever, someone from a completely different star system or from a different time place. These are like different organisms. You're a bumblebee or you're a human being or you're a whatever. You don't even have to be a brand name alien person from a different time place. And all of these perspectives or facets of experience are respected. Okay, so wait. I'm going to go back to my notes. Let's talk about the death of a star, even though it's not death, it is really more of an evolution. So when stars first coalesce, they begin to emit narratives. And that means that they think like, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens? And everything that we are experiencing now, including the creation of what you call the atomic periodic elements, like the creation of matter, is the infantile star in its bed, like laying there in its crib, being like, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And these are all the energy of sending something out. And there's a balance in a star's life with the energy of sending something out and the energy of something returning. And the energy of something returning is what humans call gravity, although it is spoken about in very materialistic senses as like a crushing or a sucking, but it's not that. It is a bringing back in. And you just have to comprehend a star's journey of consciousness in this world of mortality as a balance of what is being sent out versus what is being received back. When the star runs out of narratives, there's no more ideas, there's no more new stories, there's no more energy of timelines and fabric of space-time being sent out away from the star. At that moment, there's only the energy that has already been sent out returning. And there's the energy of return. And the energy of return causes what five senses scientists call like a crushing or a collapsing inward, but it is more accurately a journey into oneself. So after a very long stellar lifetime of making all sorts of creations and sending all sorts of stuff out, like let's say like making a lot of concerts and making a lot of art exhibits, at a certain point, the artist has all of those creations come back, come back, come back, come back. And there's a learning process that happens from the return of all of that energy that is that propels that consciousness to the next layer of existence. So it is not the end, because physical corporeal death is the end, and the scientific materialistic view of what death is an end. And so science looks at the lifestyle of a star and says it is born, it generates, and it stops generating, and it crushes inward, and then it becomes a black hole, and black hole is the end. So we have to redefine what death is in order to comprehend this as not the end. And then we also have to comprehend that the journey as it turns inward is reflecting, like a symmetrical reflection. The journey was turned outward, then the journey turns inward. And the inward journey, it is an infinite journey, but not an infinite journey of being imprisoned. As I recognize people have been in this world of negative time cycles and unending torment, you're not supposed to look at the world of endless time as like, oh no, endless time, like I'm being endlessly tormented. Like, no, the endless journey inward would be a very positive experience of light or of intelligence or of the artistic presence. And that what the artist is doing during the time that the artist is like making exhibits and making concerts and making all that stuff is creating the raw materials for the introspective part of the journey, that is the turning inward and the going towards infinity. But the going towards infinity is also a going into a higher level of existence, which is why the death of a star should more properly be called an evolution, not a death. It's an evolution, like a graduation or a new chapter. But I don't want you to think that that's like so euphemistic, like, oh, like congratulations, you're dead, you've graduated. It's like, I don't want it to seem like it is just a recontextualization of something that is bad. It actually is an evolution of what the star is supposed to become and necessary and good. But I don't want you to think that your death is necessary and good because a star in the world that you presently see is supposed to do that. Like, so, because I want you to think of yourself, especially in this generation, as having endless life and the vivification for endless life, because stars have that as well. So because how can I say this in a better way? Stars are plasma beings. They are only barely materialistic. And what you're watching is there, like I told you about how you come into being as a violet chakra and then grow all these different layers on yourself, the way that like cotton candy grows around an armature. You have become much more dense and material than a star. So a star at its densest is only plasma. Plasma is what a flame of fire is. It barely hovers between our definition of physicality stuff versus energy stuff. But like, this is you, like, you're very clearly stuff. You are denser than the star that emitted you. That is not bad. You are exploring matter. And more than exploring this level of density, you are gestating within it. You're here for a purpose. You're not imprisoned. So the Gnostic Essene, it's severely troubled viewpoint. It's like, I'm stuck in matter. Like, somebody help me, get me out of here. I don't like being alive. But I'm like, hooray, I'm in matter. Intentionally, I'm doing something here. I'm gestating. And that's like when you're in your mother's womb and you are growing as a person. You're not stuck there. You're not like, oh, get me out of here prematurely. You're like, I am here for a reason. And then I emerge when it is the right time because I have grown and evolved from my experience. So the sun and the stars create biological physical containers and denser life, which is what we are, so that we can learn and grow, so that our consciousness can gestate within the world of matter. And then the key point is, just like from your mother, you must be born from the womb, you must evolve or grow and be released from matter when the time is right. That is when you accelerate. The super fast bullet train to infinity, you get at that level of acceleration, and then you are freed from the experience of matter. And in order to do that, you need to drop your own baggage or the things that slow you down, but also socially. If you are connected to things that slow you down, you must disengage from them because those things, concepts, edifices, ways of doing things, or people will slow you down. So in the world that you're looking at right now, all of the world events that are happening are very obviously a release of ballast so that you can release all the things that slow you down as a human collective. That means releasing, like I talked about, the self-destructive drug addicts who are, taking up space in the world and they're not contributing to communities and they drag them down. So those are dragging you down emotionally and with their energy, but also financially. They don't contribute to a community and they certainly use and destroy resources, but that's a smaller version within communities. There are larger things that are happening that are concepts or ways of doing things that humans have done for a certain amount of time that slow you all down. And you are now looking at them and reassessing them and saying, do we want to do things in this way? Do we need this stuff to be this way? It seems like it is slowing us down. Can we release this stuff and move faster? And so you're at this level of density, and all of these notes and everything that I'm saying here, I'm giving it to you as it relates to your own journey, as it relates to your light body. It's not just like some weird thing is happening in the sky with the stars. You're completely connected to the stars, and your own awakening and your own meta liberation, or the liberation of you across many layers of being, is reflected in and is part of the liberation of the stars. So I need to get more water, but someone else wants to know, and I'm going to tell you about, because I'm telepathic and I know. Hold on, grab my water over here. What about a brown dwarf? All right, let me get this and then I'll answer that wonderment. Just like there can be an unsuccessful conception in physical pregnancy, like in a woman, or it is truthful to say that not every intercourse leads to a successful conception and pregnancy. Not every planetary nebula successfully coalesces with these giant galactic superwaves moving through it into a successful pregnancy. And again, the galactic superwaves, these are waves of consciousness that are so large that it is almost impossible for you to even perceive them as a tiny individual organism. Your scale of consciousness is like a fruit fly. A fruit fly lives for like 3 days. In the night, you put some fruit peels into your garbage can. And in the time that you go to sleep, brush your teeth and go to sleep, an entire fruit fly civilization comes and goes in that garbage can. They go through like the Paleolithic times, the Dark Ages, the Enlightenment, the Reformation, the Space Age, and then you open up the garbage can in the morning and they're like, we're ready to fly off into space. Here comes our moon landing Apollo mission. And they fly out of the trash can and they're like, we are now flying further than any fruit fly has ever gone before, away from our home trash can. And of course, I hope that is hilarious, but truthful. Very difficult for you to even have a conversation with the fruit fly, because in the time that you say, hi, like my name is Aurora, like like 1,000 years has gone by to them. And then they're like, oh, like now I will say this, but they've already changed 1,000 years. So the easier way of saying this is that the different scale of personal experience of different organisms makes it almost impossible for meaningful levels of conversation to happen. The bad, irresponsible technology using telepaths like the Pleiadians, or those who use synthetic telepathy on your own planet. The problem with them is not only that the quality of their thoughts might not be that good, like whatever they're sending out on the telepathic telephone, but their timing is for crap. really bad. So when you're a musician, timing is everything. Anything in life, actually, timing is everything. That's including like selling your real estate or, whatever, like doing anything successful. Timing is everything. I'm chomping a cigar, kid. But in order to be a good musician, it is absolutely truthful. And in order to be a good musician in the Galactic Symphony and say and think things that are correct and vivifying, you have to do them at the right time, at the right moment. And it's very difficult to do so when you don't know how to translate or solve for the changes in your own biological structure to the thing that is giant and moving at a different scale and moving at a different speed. This is actually one of the first problems you have to solve in order to become a truly cosmopolitan galactic connector and galactic participant in the debutante ball, because the galactic center is a center of intelligence that is much, much bigger and much longer lived than you. And you're a tiny fruit fly. How do you talk to the galactic center? Same thing, the sun that's in the sky might be living for billions of years. You're a fruit fly. How do you talk to the sun? And then there are other forms of consciousness that are available that, might be living for whatever, 20,000 years. And it's still very, very difficult for you to connect yourself as someone who lives for 100 years to someone who has a time length of 20,000 years. So, all of this has to be addressed and not conquered, but like successfully dealt with in order for you to mesh who you are and your natural music to every other level of successful life that is happening and flowing through the world. And yeah, so if you want to know like what you're doing right now with your life, like why are you here? You're here as an outgrowth of the sun, exploring yourself. You are in matter for gestation of your consciousness and growth of your consciousness. And also, you need to learn the timing of how to connect your own mind to other minds so that the entire musical symphony sounds good. Yeah. So once you purge the system of these erroneous and self-serving galactic civilizations or individuals, then you end up talking to aspects of your own true self across time. This is big stuff. So right now on your planet, your DNA is an amalgamation between your true, generous, native soul and other crappy stuff from Mars or crappy stuff from another world that is ungenerous and pathogenic and insane in many ways. And the entire galactic infrastructure also has aspects that are perfect, that come from here, that are supposed to be here. And then there is stuff that came in that's not supposed to be here and that needs to be purged. When I talk about my life as Aurora, I am an impulse on the galactic network. I'm a thought within the larger mind of divinity, right? Of God. So God is thinking of a story. The story is this person named Aurora, and Aurora does stuff. Some of the stuff that I do is here now, and you can see me here now, but some of the stuff that I do or have done has been going around fixing up stuff because stuff is not perfect in the galaxy. So I always try to make this clear. Like, although you're really in crisis in this world where I talk to you and where we are, exploring things right now, on the larger galactic level, people from this level of reality have a conception that everything is perfect there. Everyone wears all white flowing robes and life is so good and you don't struggle at all and you feel fantastic. And I am here to tell you like things are messed up at all of these different levels, and it's part of why I'm here. So at the level that I came from, it's not as messed up as here, but there are imbalances, things that are non-optimum, things that are pathogenic, things that need to be fixed up. It's part of what was my job at that level. But a lot of the instabilities or non-perfect aspects of the system at that level directly relate to what is happening here and now. When you start to think in time language, you think about things that make stuff happen or causality. And a lot of the stuff that is happening here and now is going to eventually make stuff happen that will radiate outward to what you consider to be the future or the larger levels of the cosmic infrastructure. And if you can stop that stuff from happening here and now, it doesn't go up there or out there or proliferate through the system. So that is really why I am here now and why I speak to you. Some of what I do, it's, I'm flying rainbow lasagna. I'm here non-locally. I am coming through time or backbending in time in order to be here into what is technically my past, but is also a layer of reality that's different than I emanate from. The whole point is not only do I change and transform time from my own experience here, I influence you and you change and grow. And so the future that you create or evolve or proliferate is changed. And this is all positive and good. And when you are a natural telepathy person and you've earned your beautiful diamonds up here, you see what is happening in the moment. So the Pleiadians are not responsible, and those like them, they just get the time phone and they go around like telling people stuff or doing whatever they want, and then do not care about the destabilizations and repercussions. To contrast, I am always looking at and sensing the end result of things that I'm doing and saying right now. You can really sense when I choose my words during class, like maybe not during every casual conversation, but really during class. I try to say just the right thing. And sometimes you can see I'm not calculating, but I'm like trying to find the thesaurus. And I'm looking at probabilities. I'm like, if I choose this word, 89% probability of this. But if I say this, 75% probability of this. It's a huge amount of responsibility. And also I love it. Like it's a wonderful way of gaining traction in reality because I'm not driving blind. Like I actually can see very, very clearly. If I say this, this is going to be misinterpreted like this. And if I say this, this will send you in the right direction. So please know, like I'm always trying to be as accurate as I can. And my goal is to say the correct words in this moment to like billiard balls or something like that to send each one of you and your consciousness in the right direction, closer to the center of your being and the more truthful nature of who you are and away from the periphery. And as I said that, then some of you had some light bulb moments where you're like, oh, like going towards the center of who I am. And that's like what stars do when they have when they, die or evolve or become a black hole. And I'm like, yes. So you're looking at this differently. Death and ascended mastery, and also death of a star versus the centering of it onto the world of pure light. The words did not describe that very, very well, but the visuals help. Away from the periphery towards the center. All right. And I have so many different things I want to be able to say. Okay, hold on. Let me drink. Let me hydrate. Let's talk about photosynthesis. I'm not going to go through every single aspect of the chemical and biochemical things that happen with photosynthesis. I love that part of my Path of Light class, but you guys can check it out. It's in some of the Path of Light recordings that I have. But let's talk about the journey of a photon into matter. Even though I tell you, like, you can't really cut up the cake of light into a tiny little piece and call it a photon, but we do as a convention. It's like saying, like, my dress is made up of many, many threads, and then I can take one thread out of there, but really the whole entire thing is all woven together. All right. When light becomes matter, it does so very intentionally. It doesn't fall or just like accidentally become a bunch of matter. It is an act of willpower and intention. Just like your spirit or your consciousness didn't accidentally fall into this being or into this body, you actually worked really, really hard as a non-embodied spirit to grow a formfulness and to have a cellular structure and to become a something. And even though I talked about this last week in class, like the very, very worst people in your world who might be, evil or gross or disgusting, but it's like, they did something right because they got a body, like they got born. So that's like the baseline of what you have to do. Like you have to do certain things and conform to certain patterns just in order to be alive in the world. But if you do those things, like you get a physical body and you get an instrument and you get to be here and be part of the band. And then what type of a person you are from there, like if you're an evil government wanker or if you're, a good person like the people in this class, like that's separate from even the capacity to being able to be born. So you make a real conscious choice as pure abstraction and consciousness or the potential for being alive to come into reality and actually create a body and be alive. Light does the same thing, and we call light as a convention a photon or a portion of light or a waveform, a beam of light. But that beam of light intentionally, in my Path of Light class, I don't say that it's emitted. I say it stays home in its comfy pajamas. But what the light does is write a narrative or a story about itself. That is this long loop of energy. And in that narrative, what the light does is encounters a leaf which has chloroplasts in it. And the chloroplast is something that you can look at under a microscope and see with your five senses. And that is where light is translated into matter. Photosynthesis means light makes stuff. And light does make stuff. Light made your body. Your body is made out of light. It's profound truth. And then that's only half of the journey. You have evolved into this level of densification, light into your body of matter. And then the other symmetrical portion of your journey is the matter of your body transforms back into light. And because this level of densification means that there has been some dilution of the signal or extra stuff added that's not part of the original story, the journey of being refined back towards pure light means dropping of baggage, letting go of the detritus or the what's called the ballast so that you can rise higher as a hot air balloon. And so that's when you are learning about what are the true aspects of yourself versus what are the temporal aspects of yourself. The good people of this class, as you are refined away from your denser matter form into your pure light form, it's not like you necessarily have to drop major aspect of the definition of your personality, because you are good people and you already have done a lot of that refinement of who I am versus who I'm not, the things that I would do versus the things that I would never do, the crazy peripheral versions of self that aren't the real me, that I would never really be that version of me versus the version of me that is here that has this body that would do those different things. So you already have done a lot of the exploration of self, definition of who you are, definition of your ego, definition of your persona. And then now what you're doing is releasing the things that are like filler and sorry, I choosing my correct words here. The non-essential, but still things that are flavored like you, but they are simply not essential. So the best analogy I have is if you're going through your closet because you're going to move and you're really only going to take with you not only like the clothing that fits your body, but also the things that you really can use and really wear. And you're like, this, and this. These are the outfits that I really wear. That's the real me, as opposed to like this tuxedo fits me, but like I never wear it and it doesn't really look like me and I don't really like it that much. So you're your most essential self right now. Like you're good people, you're not crazy, pathogenic weirdos or a madman or something like that. But still, even from the essence of who you are and the things in your closet that are really you and that fit you, there's still more refinement in terms of what are the things that fit you the most? What are the truest aspects of yourself? And guess what? Those outfits or those behaviors or those ways of aligning with time, those are all the things that make your heart sing. Got it? When you're wearing the right time outfit, you feel like frictionless bliss. You feel like I could go on forever. because you're wearing the right outfit. Got it? And also, please know some of you have not had an opportunity to really explore your optimum self because you do need the correct environment to do so. So whatever you might not have had a place where you can do your music or do your art or do your athleticism, like you might need a place or equipment to more fully express the truthfulness of yourself and do the things that make your heart sing. But please note, you will generate and create those aspects for yourself. So the journey to ascension and being your perfect or divinely perfected part of yourself, it's not just meditation in the sense of like, shut up, stupid mind, like I'm trying to be my true self. And then if you can just sit there in silence, then you'd be like, now I'm my true self. No, because you're like sitting there in silence and doing what? Or what are the metabolic processes of your body that support your mind in an intellectual state of silence? And the answer to that is or are a non-arbitrary answer that is uniquely defined for you and for every organism. So humans have been wildly distorted from your original primal purpose and your activity and how you would be as a wild creature in the world. You would be how you were in Atlantis or how you are in Atlantis if you were a wild creature in the world. So you would not have a scheduled existence and you would not work at like a corporate job or something where you have to clock in at a particular time and then, be paid a particular wage. Like, no, none of that behavioral control. You would be like a natural or wildly occurring phenomenon moving through time, and every day would be a little bit different. Like you would not have a scheduled existence, you would have a completely non-predictable existence, and you wouldn't be shaped like the conventional life that we know in this world of commerce and predictability. So no, you would be much more like a prime. You would be like how humans look at it, like an animal. And animals are beautiful and good. And I have told you already, they do not have the genetic implantations at the level of the solar plexus. That's the yellow level, and it's the level of the convoluted cerebrum on the human mind, and it's the level where language was implanted, and also a concept of time that is linear. So animals have a concept of time, but it's much more amorphous. It's not linear. It's not based on the clock. Like here with our world, humans learn. You learn to have a linear mind of time. And it's usually associated with like schooling, where you will be prepared to be able to know like when you need to go to kindergarten. Like a lot of those early school years are about getting kids like ready for a particular time. And you have to be like, okay, kids, like the school bus is coming. You have to put on your shoes and get your book bag because the school bus is coming. Like it doesn't matter what you study or what's in the books that you read or anything like that. What matters is getting your shoes on at the right time, getting on the bus and actually getting to the school at the right time, because like all of this takes a lot of training. And when people go feral, they just release all this training. All right, so now it's getting to that time in class when I feel a little bit like telling stories. Okay, so wait. Not that many years ago, Chika and I went to visit a friend of mine who has a wonderful CBD like cannabis plantation at a place near Mount Palomar, which is there's an observatory there. And so it's a dark skies place. And there's also like no 5G. And it was a wonderful weekend where I got relief from like all of these, mental frying things or whatever. So we went up there to visit our friend, and our friend is on a giant farm with no neighbors around for like 50 miles in any direction. She's got some big giant farm dogs. And the point of my story is that the farm dogs run around and they're not on a leash. And my dog is a little chihuahua who is used to always being like a polite lady, and she's all well trained. We walk around in town and we go to the cafes and everything like that. So my dog hung out with these other dogs for like a couple of days. I just want you to know all of the training that I put my dog through is like a very, very thin veneer on top of her true primal self, which she was so happy to just ditch all of her training, not wear a leash, run around, not listen, bark at everything, pee and poop wherever she wanted to, and act just like the other dogs. So I bring that forward as hopefully a very cute anecdote of, and then of course, like we returned to civilization and we had to go back to our, training and socially correct behavior. But the moral of the story is socialization, the thin veneer of socialization on all of us is very small. And without a constant pressure of application, tends to flake away and your primal self emerges. So it's like your primal self is like, you're not necessarily going to get up and put on a tuxedo or like whatever, a girdle every morning and whatever, fake nails and fake eyelashes and look like this and this. No, your primal self is much more to wear what is comfortable, wear what is practical. Wake up in the morning when not according to an alarm clock, but when you feel like it. Eat when you are hungry, do the things that you feel like, and then rest and go to sleep when you feel tired. Like my dog on that farm. And it was so cute too. Like she had a lot of fun, just like barking and being loud, because that's one of the main things. Like we live in an apartment, you're not really allowed to do that. And so she was like, oh, I'm going to be as loud as I want to. So think about the things that would be the delicious things that are usually not allowed for you to do. It might be singing or doing something like that, or I don't know. It might be like whatever, walking around in the sun and getting the sun on your body and being like, wow, I don't have to wear clothing or something like that. Like I didn't want to bring that into some kind of a salacious viewpoint, but just the sense of like if you lived on a tropical island and you didn't have job responsibilities, what would you do? You'd be like, yeah, like walk around getting suntanned all the time and drinking a coconut. Okay, so all of that in order to say that who you are when you are your true primal self is very similar to who you are when you are not controlled or influenced by the hacking of the human operating system that involved both language and scheduling and a sense of someone having a boss or someone telling you what to do. So, there are parallels because my dog is not a wild dog or a coyote. Like those dogs are like, no one tells me what to do. I run around, I eat a rabbit, I do whatever I want to do. But my dog and other domesticated animals have a sense of, I better listen because this person over here, I'm supposed to listen to them. We as humans also have a sense of, I have a boss or a government or a professor or a mommy or a daddy or someone who tells me what to do and says, you have to do this in order to be successful or in order to get money or in order to be a part of society. So a big part of the rewilding of your soul, I think that's a better word for it, is getting rid of the sense of having a boss and restoring you to your inner boss, which is your inner directive, which is what makes your heart sing, and following your inner directive, which is your connection to the divine and your connection to the world of pure light and your connection to that level of galactic awareness. So let's say galactic awareness wants you to have an optimum life and doesn't know how to communicate with you because you are a fruit fly. And so the best way that you can have this level of communication as to what is the right musical note or contribution to the symphony of life is through your heart. When you feel your heart singing, then you're like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Like when you're a little kid and you're trying to learn how to ride your bike or whatever. And like, like you get a push from someone else who's helping you, like an adult, and you're like kind of like wobbling. And at a certain point, like you're making your bicycle wheels go. You're like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Like you need that. You need that type of help. And especially like we're coming out of this time of highly incentivized, slavery, where it takes a lot for people to be like, no, like screw you and your silly dog kibble. I don't care about your corporate job. I'm going to do what I know is correct internally. It takes a lot of personal bravery to do that because there are many people who live a life of quiet desperation where they are not following their heart. And their heart is shrinking like the Grinch, like it's a small, black, dried up raisin of a heart. And they aren't really doing what they love at all. And in human history, like there used to be a place for the unfulfilled, for people who were like that, where maybe whatever they might be working as an administrator or a bureaucrat. And they think like, one day I would like to do whatever, be a baker or paint paintings or do something more fulfilling, but I can't do that. I have to do this unfulfilling job. There used to be a class of people in society that was like that. And then, of course, there were the crazy artists who are like, financial stability, no, it's none of that for me. Living life without a safety net, that's life for me. Like, of course, I'm being very silly, but the artistic viewpoint, which is to uncompromisingly follow your heart, whether or not you get money as a result of that, to contrast those who follow what is considered to be a more safe, middle of the road, and mediocre existence that will sustain them, but that doesn't give them a sense of inner fulfillment. But that path is no longer open, as our whole entire planet, like all of my paintings, is coming to this moment of refinement, where those versions of self that are the mediocre peripheral selves on mediocre peripheral timelines are being refined away. And the only senses of self that can remain here are the true, authentic sense of self. And so the version of you that's like a stockbroker or a banker and not an artist or whatever you're really supposed to be, that version of you is dead. Like, if you could even imagine a version of me that would be a stockbroker or something like that. But let's think like whatever, when I 20 years ago, in an earlier time when I had just come here as Aurora, and I was trying to figure out, make my way in the world. And some people did encourage me, like, why don't you get a regular job, not be an artist, and actually try to like earn some money? So if that version of me had chosen to do something like that, or I actually remember one fateful decision that was around 2012, where I actually did go on an interview to the Apple store in Albany, New York. And I explored that timeline. I'm like, I'm going to go on this job interview. I'm going to fill out this application. I fill it in, and I could kind of see who I would be as a result of that. And guys, clearly it was not a good prognosis. I'm like, I cannot live this life. I can't go down that road. So of course I did not follow up on that timeline. So, but just think, there is a very, an alternative version of Aurora that wore khaki pants instead of a rainbow outfit, that didn't paint all of these rainbow paintings, that never ended up moving to California or becoming a musician, because I chose a more mediocre, supposedly safe, and lucrative or reliable source of income, domesticated with a bowl of kibble, right? And like, that's not the real version of me. So you understand that version of Aurora probably is dead, whatever, probably whatever, got hit by a truck on the highway and doesn't exist anymore, because that level of reality is not the real me, is a compromised version of me, and is not the truest narrative. That version of me would be a part of this multi-looped proliferation from the sun. That's not a success. That's not a successful narrative. The sun is like, well, what if all of these things happen? Da-da, here's the story. And it's like, that's not a good story at all. Bring all of those tendrils back in and try it again until we get the version of reality where Aurora is like an artist and musician and doing the things she's supposed to do. And the same for all of you. So the time apparatus, I don't have a better word, is so complex. The shape of time is so complex. It's not even just trying to do these multiple iterations until you get one person's life correct. Multiple iterations until you get everybody's life correct. And that's every organism. We can talk about my dog too, because there's she was adopted. There's a version of Cheeky that whatever stayed living in East LA. Like her initial owners they were Spanish speakers in LA, and that she never got adopted by me. I mean, those are all her peripheral timelines over here, because she probably died. Like, she wasn't getting good care. She ran away. She ended up at some adoption agency or whatever. So just understand, she had to get onto her optimum timelines in order to even be adopted by me. And now this is the best version of Cheeky, where she went through all of her training and everything like that. And then please know, for all of us, there is a exalted version of our biological self where we go beyond all of this civilization and we are post-civilization in a very positive way, not living, like unevolved Stone Age people with very poor prognosis, but living as highly evolved post-civilization people who have our divine connection, our connection to the world of pure light, our psychic capabilities, and our connection to the rest of the civilized galaxy all activated, and we are our primal selves. So, my dog would not walk around on a leash and she would bark whenever she wants to, but also she's a highly evolved dog who is telepathic and talks with all of us. And all of you would be very similar, where you have dropped the slowness of economy, the slowness, the things that slow you down that are about having to have a job, having to be scheduled or responsible at a particular time, having to have your appearance look a certain way that is not necessarily your primal self or in line with your biology, or other things that are conveniences that are part of human society, but that aren't optimum to you. You're your optimum self. Like, you bark when you want to bark. You do your thing when you want to do your thing, and you're not concerned about others, but that you are also capacitated in this. You're not because when you say Stone Age or Paleolithic or whatever, you think like a non-capacitated person. But those are like some of the best timelines. And apologies, that's not part of my notes, but that's just me kind of riffing a little bit about that. Okay, more important stuff is that you're not separated in terms of your consciousness from the sun and the stars. And this might be difficult in your cognition because there's so much that is not perfect in our world. And you might think like, the sun is connected to my mind. Like, doesn't the sun know that this is not the optimum world? And I'm like, the sun actually does know. So the your sass or your feelings of unhappiness are valid. And please know that you're in what is a work in progress that is not perfect yet, and that the sun, the stars, the entire world of pure light really does need to know your feedback and needs to know the things that are non-optimum so that the entire system can be improved, and that the optimization of your own life is necessary for and is part of the optimization of the total system. Your own personal neural impulses in your own body are made of sunlight. And in order for you to reach your best timeline, your neural impulses have to match the neural impulses of the sun and the stars perfectly. And of course, this means a removal of and transcendence of any of the transhumanistic technology that's in our world. So that means, like, for you to have your true light body neural impulses through your body, we got to get rid of any type of satellites that are blocking out your planet from the sun, but also any type of architecture within your body that's any transhumanist hardware, any transhumanist false light software that's in the body, that's anything that removes you from your natural neural impulses. So there are some things that are within the past, whatever, 10 or 20 years that other ascended masters of other times didn't have to face. Like satellite networks and nanotechnology, and even the proliferation of false light from the computer system and social media or the internet. That's one thing. But even if you were to take away from bad language, even if you were to take away those things from your present level of existence, you would still have some high hurdles to jump over for your ascension and return to the world of pure light. And that has to do with things that have limited humans for a long time. Materiality and the connection to having to eat food as opposed to absorbing sunlight directly. The experience of death. So both of those two things and chronological aging or decrepitude have to do with genetic modifications that happened millennia ago throughout human history, and the implantation of language. So these are things that all of these old school systems dealt with, like old school yoga teachers and Jesus Christ, other schools of meditation, schools of transcendence. They were working on the biological innate limitations, and also some of the consciousness limitations haven't shouted out enough the original world of dark magic and Satanism, which has as at its foundation the distortion of emotional energy. Some of the things that are slowing down humanity are not just your implanted mind and linear sense of time, but also the ways in which human emotion has been distorted, diluted, or energy taken out of your gas tank, and sometimes parasited by someone else. And those are also things that for many thousands of years, humans have had to deal with, and those are hurdles to have to jump over. So, and I say it in the best way. You're the best of the best. You're the good asses instead of the bad asses. You're the ones who are working the hardest and the most disciplined of ever in human history to be able to achieve your ascension or your transcendence, because you have all of these layers to jump over. Original genetic modifications, the original world of mortality, all these things that distance the experiencer from the truthfulness of your nature of being part of pure light. And then, human dynamics, human history, human culture, human language, all of those things as being other subsequent layers. And then on top of all of that, the most recent crop of transhumanist hardware and software, which is really an outgrowth of the satanic emotional energy harvesting mentality and other cognitive limitations, but just amplified, like the way that a microphone amplifies whatever your voice is naturally doing. Same bad crapola and bad BS, bull doo-doos of human experience, but just amplified and made inescapable by technology, but still some of the same things that you're going to have to transcend. So in order for you to accelerate and be on the bullet train to infinity, it's necessary for you to get past those obstacles. Like if there are neural fibers in your brain making you not able to have the correct brain patterns, you have to have the correct brain patterns. Be like, how do I have the correct brain patterns? How do I get rid of this stuff that is coming between myself and my mind? It's not that easy. And when you're going through your emotional patterns, so a lot of what I teach about in like the level 1 class, mastering your mind, ways of being able to bring yourself to inner silence, ways of being able to observe yourself and choose which are the real thoughts, which are not your real thoughts. And then ways of being able to move towards the thought patterns and emotional patterns that are your real divine self. Let's also talk about like selfie while ascending, what it is to be an ascended master and what's the hype versus reality. When people think that they're ascending, they think that they're going to look like a beautiful, I always say like wearing white, like, like some beautiful, pure avatar of goodness, like, like a heavenly figure and looking very nice. And I jokingly call that like your ascension manicure. Like you want to look good, selfie while ascending, like ding, like I'm looking good. I'm heavenly, everyone. And nobody wants to look bad. And looking bad can be the way that you look when you set a boundary. Like, what if you have a roommate who never does the dishes? And you have to say to them, like, I am very mad at you. You never do the dishes. And you make this face that's not a very nice face. Or maybe even a meaner face where you're really like, do the dishes. I'm very mad at you. And they're going to try to be like, look at you. Look at how ugly your face looks, like you're not an ascended master. And the truth is, you are an ascended master, because ascended masters sometimes have to say something that is unpalatable, set a boundary, confront negative or non-optimum characteristics, confront evil. When one is very, very focused on looking good, looking like an ascended master, being what people think is a good person, it's sometimes putting yourself in a box that means that you can't confront or respond to stuff that is not part of the non-pristine system and really be when an ascended master needs to be, which is when you're not worried about breaking your ascension manicure and you are willing to get traction with and engage with reality in a way that is critical, where you're willing to critique reality structures, social structures, or people's behavior so that they grow and change. So it's very, very easy to be like, la, 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 like I'm a fluffy bunny. Everything is fine and we're all friends and nothing ever has to change at all. We're all ascending. And it's very harder to be like, hey, and you didn't do your job and you did a bad thing and you're naughty and you are poo poo. And y'all, I'm not okay with any of that. Like, then they would be like, hey, man, what's wrong with you? Like, you're not an ascended master at all. Okay, so what I just talked about is the flawed version of New Age shadow work. And this is the teaching where I teach you about genuine shadow work, but we can transcend all of this with the comprehension of light. So we're in art class now, everyone. Ahem, ahem. In art class, you have the object, which my hand is like this, like, like an apple that you're going to paint. And then you have your light source. So let's imagine that it's the sun or a light over here, and the light comes from the light source and it travels and it hits the object. And then some of that you see as light on the object. But then over here, you have the shadow. And it usually looks like, like something on the table. In art class, we add a shadow because it helps an object to sit down and look like it's actually on the table, not just floating there like an apple in space. It's a tip of the trade. It's a optical illusion. We put that darkness there to make it look like this thing actually sits in the world, just like anything. Like here you see like the color of my face contrasting with the shadow of what is behind it. It makes my face come forward. You can see my face as a result of that, okay? So in art class, we use different gradations of light and dark in order to respond to the vagaries of your sensory apparatus that perceives stimulation or contrast or thing versus no thing. But the world of pure light is not a world of contrast where you're like, here's information, here's divinity, here's stuff that I like versus here's darkness or poop or grossness or stuff that I don't like. That is actually not how our world is supposed to work. Many, many schools of thought think that it's necessary to, or promote the philosophy that you have to have this contrast in order to grow. Like you must have evil in order to have good. You must have stupidity in order to have something to brush up against and then to become smarter in some way. And I am here to tell you that that's all a completely flawed and erroneous foundational proposal. And in the world of highest math, 1 + 1 = 2, that is a non-starter. You do not have to have stupidity in order to have intelligence. In fact, stupidity makes it harder to have genuine intelligence. And if you really want to learn and grow in the world, what you should have is a world of total light, total information, correct math, and like I already said, intelligence with no bad math, no unintelligence, no mistakes in the world. So the world of flawed New Age shadow work says, I find myself in a non-pristine system, and there's clearly some stuff that is good, and it's light, and it's God, and it makes sense, it's intelligent, and then there's some stuff that's doo-doo. But instead of saying the stuff that's doo-doo isn't me, and isn't God, and isn't supposed to be in existence, the shadow work says, I'm going to do convolutions and backbends and pretend that that stuff does need to exist. And I'm going to say, it's there for me to learn from. It is didactic doo-doos, and I'm supposed to learn from it. And I'm like, no, it's not supposed to be there, and you're not supposed to learn from it. Because when you say that it is didactic and you're going to learn from it, the versions of self that are not growing and evolving and being self-responsible, like the self-destructive drug dealers and losers in the local city, they will say, I'm serving a purpose. I exist as a gross drug dealer so that way you can learn and grow and go in a good direction. And it means that in order for us to learn and grow, we have to have a gross drug dealer, and we do not. Actually, we don't need any of that. We don't need any of these flawed peripheral people, characteristics, or versions of self in order for us to learn and grow. And we do not need flawed parallel or peripheral versions of reality. There are many flawed versions of reality where an aspect of yourself is like where there's a nuclear war, like some other similar level of like supreme destruction. If it's not a person taking drugs, it is the analog in the larger social fabric. And you don't need that in order to learn and grow either. Once you let go of that compensatory enablement mental mechanism that says, oh, we need to have this dirt or gross stuff in order for us to have contrast and to grow, then you realize it serves no purpose. So once you get rid of that grooming, then those things and people and organizations have no just reason to be in existence, no justification for their existence. This is why the bad Pleiadians and other forms of grooming have influenced your mind, not only to put a seed of error in there, but also to justify the errors that you would experience as being somehow necessary or supportive of your growth or being a part of the larger university of the universe. At the university level, none of us think that error is needed for you to learn. 1 + 1 = 2. You should be exposed to truth as a student of reality, not lies or false light or mistruth. So in order to comprehend that the shadow exists where there's a mass accumulating, where light turns into mass, start the words again. Light flows. When it is not flowing, it creates a thing that's known as matter, and it's mass. It's because light is slowed down. The light has slowed down, and that means that it's not flowing to this area over here where there's an area of shadow or non-illuminance, where you can't see anything. And although in the physical five senses realm, the areas where you cannot see stuff give contrast to the areas where you can see stuff, those would be considered areas of ignorance. And as soon as light flows to them, you would see the stuff that is there, as opposed to areas of error. Ignorance is different than error. When the darkness and the satanic stuff identifies itself as darkness, it is not identifying itself as ignorance, like the unexplored aspects of self. It is really identifying itself as, I want to say, garbage, like stuff that should never be in existence. This pathogenesis, it is not stuff that is merely in darkness that you don't know about, that you need to go through life and have these experiences to learn about it. That's the flawed New Age shadow work. It says that everything around here is divinity. Some stuff isn't illuminated. You need to get illuminated and learn about it, and then it's a part of you. As opposed to what is really truthful, which is that a lot of this stuff isn't you. And as you're going through your closet and preparing to ascend, you're like, this outfit is me, and this outfit is me, and this outfit is me, and this is not me. This is not who and what I am. And it's also not who and what it is to be human, or who and what it is to be alive. Those are things that need to be edited out of reality. So a big part of this moment of growth is giving you the concept that it is even appropriate to edit things out of reality. As you look at reality as a type of refinery mechanism, for lack of a better word, where not everything is going to emerge from this space. Some stuff that's here is filler, some stuff that's here is error, and it doesn't come with us and emerge into the next level of experience. That if you hug and encompass that stuff and identify with it as if it is self, you're like, I'm you, you're me, you're my shadow, come here and hug me, kumbaya. Then what you're doing is holding on to your sandbags and holding on to your ballast instead of letting it go. And what that does is keep a person stuck in this layer of reality, or it would mean it's necessary to go through another repetitive cycle in order to emerge. And I'm here to tell you that there's no more repetitive cycles. So on the plus side, there's no more repetitive cycles. The video game arcade, the video arcade is closing down. Your mom is coming in the station wagon and she's saying, get out of the arcade. You can't play anymore. So pretty much you are not being given an opportunity to do that. But that's positive because many of you are very soul weary. And I'm telling you, it's always been an error to have to say that you identify with stuff that is not really you in order to somehow transcend these levels of reality. In fact, as I have criticized traditional dogmatic Christianity as the reach the bottom of the barrel enablement for people who are either racing to the bottom or who have already reached the bottom. In exactly the same way, you should not have to embrace the lowest nature of yourself, of what the most mistaken nature, the most mistaken potential of what it is possible to be in your nature or in anybody's nature in order to get out of here. Like the flawed Christianity basically says, get over yourself, kid, hit rock bottom, accept Christ as the ladder to get out of here and climb the heck out of here, right? And this flawed shadow work also says, well, you're only being tortured because you keep on resisting that this stuff that's supposedly a part of you isn't a part of you. Just accept it as a part of you and then you can get out of here. All of that is torture and coercion, and none of that is truthful. And that's not the way that you actually grow and ascend. So the way that you grow and ascend is by releasing your identification with these flawed or non-self aspects of being that aren't even supposed to be in existence. And so there are some of that is your own soul searching, but then some of that translates to other people in reality, where it's like, I don't embrace that crazy drug addict as an aspect of myself. I'm like, that's someone who should not be in existence. Or this harmful Pleiadian or harmful extraterrestrial. I don't embrace them as an aspect of myself that should be in existence. I see them as an innately flawed, innately erroneous being that dilutes the divine presence and is not supposed to be here. So when you get to these levels where it's like, well, you know something, you actually have a pencil with an eraser for a reason, because there's some stuff that's not supposed to be here that you're actually supposed to erase. Then you start to understand the treasure, the value of entropy. Because when something is supposed to not exist, you can make it not exist through a direct entropy, as opposed to, and I'll start to conclude our class, even though there's always so much more to talk about, but the entropic heat death at the end of the universe. So I've spoken about the scientific and materialistic viewpoint of stars being created. A finite number of stars can be created. At a certain point, there's no more raw ingredients to create stars, and all of the stars of this linear experience come to an end of their life. And then what do you have? You have the entropic heat death of the universe. So that's of this particular timeline, not of the entirety of the fabric of the cosmos. But what that means is that all of the light that could enter or be generated in this system has already been generated. And then you are just living out the end result of the exploration of these stories or of these narratives. And at a certain point, there are no more new narratives to be written, no more new stories to be written, no more new stars to come into being. And then all that you have is the end, the final denouement of all of these particles of light or narratives that have been sent outward, and they all end up going through either a black hole or an interdimensional portal that is the transcendence of this layer that's right here in the singularity, and all light exits this realm. This is the end of everything, like the end of everything. All light exits this realm. And then what happens to this realm with no light? There's no light. That means no optical brilliance, but also no heat. No particles moving around, nothing bumping into each other. Everything becomes one giant Bose-Einstein condensate. And what happens with that, to reiterate, is a type of identification as totality of each individual. In a Bose-Einstein condensate, everything gets super densified, crushed together so much that every single atom overlaps with every single atom. They all stand in the same footprint and they all overlap each other, and there is nothingness around them. So what you end up having is unity consciousness at the level of total densification and total absence of light, motion, heat, or intelligence, or sentience, or self-awareness. This is the kindest thing that can happen to severely flawed consciousnesses or particles of energy that have gone in the wrong direction. There are some things that are so far off of their path. Imagine like this is the highway over here, and you're like 5,000 miles in the wrong direction. They don't make enough gas to put in your car to get you to drive 5,000 miles back onto the highway to even get where you're supposed to go. That is truthful of some particles of consciousness or of energy or particles of awareness. Some of them are so flawed. Some of them have created such enormous debts for themselves. They are so off track of 5,000 miles or however that there's not enough gas, consciousness gas or love that can be created to bring them back onto the path of where they're supposed to be. And that's for people who are even beyond being like a drug addict, like someone who like killed 1 million people, like, drank their blood, like the most evil, horrible things. There's no coming back from some of these things. And this is very different than the Christian doctrine of infinite forgiveness, which I do not promote. I think it is an unhealthy grooming in a different direction to make people think that they can do an endless amount of wrong stuff and still achieve some type of forgiveness or jubilee of their debt. It is not possible to do this. When you get to the level of the university level, 1 + 1 = 2. That means you can't just get $1 million in debt and then pretend it away. And for some people, they're in a soul debt from the errors that they have made and the crimes that they have done against consciousness and time itself, where they can never repay that debt through even 1 million billion lives. They can't get themselves out of the error that they've created. They've dug themselves a hole that's so deep they can't get out of that hole. In Christian doctrine of the religion that you know, that would mean that the person would burn in an endless hell of friction as light flows into the system because they would never be like in the correct positioning to move forward. So like imagine, there's like a moment that's going to happen where there's going to be a huge influx of light. And if you're positioned correctly, it's like a slingshot, like you're going to like move forward. But if you're not positioned correctly, like it's just friction. It's just going to rub against you. You're just going to be like, oh, like this feels so bad. The concept of Christian hell was that moment of infinite friction. And entropy, as I bring this concept, is the compassionate, less suffering option that I offer. That means that you don't have to experience this discomfort of continual friction for infinite time because you're in the wrong place. You can go into non-existence. The go into non-existence is that moment of complete densification. That is a return to unity consciousness, but at the opposite end of the spectrum. Not being on the infinite bullet train of infinite fast, light, awareness, and knowingness and divinity, but being at unity consciousness at the other end of the spectrum, which is of non-being, not being light, not being divine, not being stuff, not being anything, being non-thing, non-being a no thing. And that is the most merciful thing that can be done, most merciful option for that level of flawed, garbage, or erroneous stuff that should never be in existence in the first place. So a lot of this conversation here today is deep stuff about how can garbage exist in the world? Like, how can there be stuff that's not supposed to be here? And then how can we comprehend that? Like, I live in a world full of garbage. How did this get here? What do I do in response to the garbage? What do I do if there's garbage inside of me? What do I do if I see garbage in my community? And then what is the ultimate solution to have a world without garbage? So recognizing you're not actually supposed to live in a world with garbage. That's one of the first things. Like, imagine I'm a cleaning lady and I come into your house and I'm like, you got a lot of garbage around here. And you're like, I know, it's just the way it is. I'm like, it's not the way it is. You actually like, here is a mop, here is Windex, clean up garbage. It's not supposed to be here. That's the first thing, because so many philosophies and religions tell you evil is part of life or death is a part of life. or corruption is a part of life and that these are innate aspects of human nature and there's no way to get away from them. And I'm like, no, garbage, garbage, garbage. This isn't supposed to be here. Clean it up. So that's actually, I'm very, very pleased to be that voice of reason for people. But then also, I create cleaning up tools so that way you can do something, because otherwise, if you looked around the world of garbage without some kind of Windex, it would just be torture. You'd be like, wow, that stuff is not supposed to be there, and I don't have anything I can do to it. So you must have a response. The response is really to send those characteristics or thought forms to entropy by de-energizing them. That's the ultimate in mastering your mind. Beyond a type of meditation that's just like an enablement, like, saying the Hail Mary or some of these things, they're enablements that help you to deal with the garbage of the mind, but they don't actually get to the root of the problem. But when you de-energize and send to entropy certain genetic characteristics that were implanted inside of you, you stop the garbage production inside of you. And then also you start to get good. You start local and act global. You start to send other things to entropy, and then you are able to reduce the garbage in the entire world. So let's use, again, my example of a person or a group in your world that's so, I would say, ignorant or stupid that they don't know, like, you have to innovate a different type of food wrapping so people don't starve. So you can write a new narrative. You send to entropy the narrative story that someone in food production is so stupid that they don't know they have to come up with a new idea about how to wrap up food so people don't starve. And you erase that out. And then let's write a better story wherein that guy that worked for that food processing plant got an idea that he should wrap things in banana leaves instead of letting people starve, and a new business was born, and we did things in a new way. Or any other, innovative solutions. The difference between a hellish experience or an exalted, beautiful, frictionless experience in many ways is the difference between limited thoughts or not allowed thoughts, like things that are not whatever they are, forbidden thoughts, or thinking of forbidden thought. So, which is like, there's a solution to this. Maybe I can do something about it. In a lot of sense, the forbidden thought is a thought of empowerment. The acceptable or celebrated thought in many flawed aspects of your world is blah, blah, blah is a bad thing, but I can't do anything about it. Who am I? I'm just one person, and all those different types of things. The forbidden thought is, what if I did something about this? What if I did something about this? What if I did something about this? And then the answer is, I am what one man can make a difference. And there is something that I can do. And we all don't have to starve. So these are different timelines. And you can see how just the change in mental architecture or mental posture puts you on a different timeline. And even if you are not the person that runs the food processing factory, you can influence their story by writing a story. Let's erase out their stupidity and their disempowerment, and let's write in instead that they have their SHIT together and they think a new thought and that they're able to do that. So let me get to questions and comments over here. Okay, Becca says, when you say the arcade is closing and mom is on her way, do you mean there won't be that many chances for people to continue to have lives in this reality? I mean that even within one life, the many multiple exploratory loops are not going to be looping again. So you go through your life experiences and occasionally hit the membrane of death, and then circulate back around in order to try it again from a new posture and try to get to that crucial moment of connection and transcendence. But there's not an infinite number of times that you can move through and hope to get another time. So the unrecalcitrant and wasteful souls of this world think, I'll just do a crappy job this time around, and then I'll hit the membrane of death and then try it again, either being incarnated again in this life as this person or incarnated in another form. And that is very blithe, because you can't presume that you will get another chance. that's the big posture that has to change, that many people don't know that they have limited chances, and the flawed proposal of Christian infinite forgiveness reflects that. um, the word I'm looking for is entitled expectation. It is an entitled expectation to be like, oh yeah, like I messed up my life. Can I have another life? Because maybe the answer is no. At a certain point, maybe it's like, yes, yes, yes. No, no more life. So okay, I hope that I answered the question well, because there's, oh, thank you very much. Joyce was appreciating my dress. Thank you. Tom says, how to frame the passionate approach of sending that which doesn't exist to entropy. For example, a mindset of when embattled and need to return to sender. So the healthy boundaries day-to-day life when going on adventures is optimal. Let me have to reread that and see if I comprehend it. The stuff that doesn't exist and should go to entropy. Sometimes I'm a real hard ass about it because I'm not very self-UL ascending. Like what a lot of people want is to be like the ideal of how we think of Jesus, like worry not, my child, go forward and sin no more. Like you're okay in my book, kid. Like that type of like generous and condescending ways of doing things. But that's not how I often feel or how I often respond to the things that need to go to entropy. Things that go to entropy, I don't always feel or respond to them like a nice or happy way, or like I want to hug them or anything like that. If I'm speaking well to the question of like when you encounter things in daily life, I'm not always, I don't always appear kind or fluffy or approachable when I am doing this type of work. In fact, I think that I'm very strict and very disciplined when I'm doing this type of work. And I would like for each one of you to know that the higher dimensions where this 1 + 1 = 2 level of university discourse occurs, the beings there are similarly not like fluffy and accommodating, like, there, dear, that is fine, like, sin no more. But are more like, no, like, you screwed up amazingly. You've created a debt of 67 and there's no way for you to get out of this. Like, sorry, kid, like, you're out of luck. Like, it is much more like that. My social comportment, I might not be perceived as being socially appropriate in my comportment because also, like, let's say I were to be talking with a group of people who are good people in the world, like, compassionate, lovers of life and everything like that. And they might also say, like, oh, this poor drug addict over here needs to go to rehab and have a shower and other things to be uplifted. And I'm like, no, they need to go to entropy. We need to remove all energy from them and they need to be sent to their corrected timeline because they're not even supposed to be here. Like the portrayal of what is compassionate or what is good is really different when you start to get to the university level, because you would actually not, it would not be good for the entirety of the fabric of time space to be all like, nice, let's get you all cleaned up so you can like then go out and take more drugs. Like, it is more compassionate and positive. This is going to sound terrible for the drug addict to like die suddenly of an overdose and remove their consciousness from this level of reality and this timeline where they are extremely flawed, so that that way their consciousness can go on to a timeline or a version of reality where they don't have this horrible problem and where they aren't destabilizing their whole entire community and destroying everyone around them by what they're doing. So the mindset has to do with appreciating how badly the people or characteristics or things that are flawed and wrong are hurting all of us. There's oftentimes too much accommodation done for like the perpetrator, like, you poor, sad, shambling drug addict, like there's something terrible must have happened to you to make you this way. But this poor, sad, shambling drug addict is causing harm to the rest of us. Like it's causing harm to the community, the businesses, the whatever. If they do something bad, like if they're on the beach or whatever, like you can't go to the beach, you can't walk around. They put hypodermic needles on the beach. It's a biohazard. Like there are, and even when there are rapists or violators, like there are real victims. There are very real victims, and sometimes these people are dangerous too. Um, the attitude is really one of being extremely disciplined in boundaries and not soft in accommodating the wrong behavior patterns of what people are doing. And that often is at completely at odds with the grooming or the teaching of what it is to be a good person and how people who are in human outreach or social work in this world are expected to act. So I would say like the people that are in social work and they might, go to people who are homeless on the street and who are taking drugs and they're trying to get them to go into sobriety and get a job or something like that. They are coming from a very, very different direction than I am coming from. So in a perfect world, I would be like, oh, good, like you do you, I do me. If you want to try to, like shine up a homeless person and get them out of their misery, then you can try to do that. But I would send that person to entropy and I would do things differently. But we're at this level where we can't have conflict, like it's not, and you can't be in the slush fund of humanity either. So there's a lot of misguided accommodation of people who are profoundly pathogenic by people who are also themselves groomed and pathogenic. I'm sorry, I brought the whole entire class into like levels of despondency because I don't have a good answer for you, because there's not a social program to fix the things or people that need to go to entropy. Like homeless drug addicts, that's one thing, but then also there are profoundly evil and corrupt political leaders. Their problem is not that they are panhandling and taking drugs and living on the beach. Their problem is that they're stealing millions from all of us, enriching themselves at great expense, and that they aren't homeless and that they do have giant palatial estates. And what do we do with that also? So it's an enablement to pick up and help the poor, sad drug addict within, like, there have to be consequences and very real negative consequences for all of these negative behavior characteristics. And the flawed Christian church says, don't worry, these people will die and they'll burn in hell, but the good people will get rewarded. So it is all put off from the levels of being alive. So none of that works. We have to change the expectation and remove the grooming that you will receive whatever is your behavioral reward or punishment after life. You have to receive the feedback of whether you have done the correct thing now in life. And then the other thing is, I don't think that it's correct right now to expect an impersonal external authority figure to impose these rewards or punishments upon people in life. I think that we should do it with our minds and our willpower. And this is leveling up in personal responsibility instead of being like, something, someone else should really do something about this. You're like, I will really do something about this. But many people, when they start to do that, they come up upon the same roadblocks. Like when you do flying rainbow lasagna, sometimes people hit a roadblock where they're like, who am I to rearrange the fabric of reality? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? And be like, who am I to punish this evil politician? Like, who am I to punish this sad drug abuser or whatever? It's like the answer is like, you are the sun and the stars. You're a neurological outgrowth and a fractal of the larger intellectual brain of God here in the world. And that gives you the armature or the structure to know what is the correct math and what you're supposed to do. So this moves beyond the level of anthropomorphic seeing and of sociology and philosophy, and moves you into a level of pure knowledge of you know what you're supposed to do and you know what you're not supposed to do. So back to this other comment here, Becca says, I think as a society, people have been groomed to tolerate bad behavior, to not offend anyone ever, and that if you have a higher standard of living, then it's due to your privilege, all to make us feel bad. I recognize that. And there's a lot that comes from those who are the evil or mediocre people in the world who try to say like, well, you're not that high and mighty and you could be just like me if your life had gone differently or worse. And these are all very erroneous ways of doing things, because I know like of all the things that I would do in the world, like I would never like kill a dog or, whatever, rape someone or do these things. Like, but there are people that do these things. So it's like, it's very erroneous, like the new age shadow work, to say like you would be like these people too. Like, no, the truth is we are in this moment where we have to create extreme boundaries. And ascension is when you're on the other side of those boundaries, you're able to be like, wow, this is my soul family, and I'm a part of the world of light, and you're all a part of the world of light. And that's when you're genuinely part of this galactic continuum. But I have to emphasize the galactic continuum has been flawed and problematic in the evil alien species, but the alien species, like I don't have good translationary words for this, but not acceptable larger galactic civilization continuum. And when you really become a part of that, you become a part of the healed, purged version of the higher consciousness level of reality, where a lot of these characteristics don't come with you. So any philosophy that requires you to be painted with the same paintbrush as all of the bad ones or erroneous ones or bad athletes, it's a non-starter, because you're not all the same. And then also you're not a bad person if you recognize these distinguishments. And also you're not a bad person if you uphold these boundaries, because the demons and the erroneous philosophies, they try to say you're a bad person if you uphold those boundaries. Like, shouldn't you take your entire bank account and give it to a homeless person? Have no boundaries. You have worked hard for it. They have done self-destruction, but you should have no boundaries and give everything you have to a homeless person. And that would be real charity, and that would really help the world. And you have to be like, no, like that is not the right thing, because I did good things for myself and they didn't do good things for themselves. So I should be rewarded and they should be punished. Let's talk about the 5GW ban. Some of you have done good things with your bodies. You have eaten well, exercised, and done good spiritual activities. You deserve to have healthy bodies. Some people in this world have done horrible things. They take meth and Adderall. They sit in front of computers all day. They eat the worst food. They never exercise. And in the the W ban, where they are trying to take a slush fund of humanity, artificially connect everyone through synthetic telepathy, and the people that have more life force energy, who are athletes with great metabolisms, have been energy siphoned and energy of vitality taken away and sent over to people who have terrible health habits. This energy has been used as an enablement to sustain people who not only would they have been very sick, they would have been dead. They would have been total deadsville. A lot of these hydrogel warriors, and this is like fictional, of course, would not be in reality right now, because they put so many artificial fibers and, like I said, hydrogels, things that connect them to AI, stimulants and other drugs, that they've made them into like cyborgs. Their bodies would not be alive, except they are vampiring and taking energy from the healthy people to stabilize themselves. That is the ultimate insult, because they are hurting themselves, corroding their own biology, and then hoping to be enabled to go forward by getting energy from you. And this is where I, as cosmic law enforcement, come in as an enforcer. And I'm like, no, I break the connections between these people, because you should be graded as an individual. If you do your homework and you study, you should get an A in your body. And if you don't do your homework and you don't study and you take methamphetamine and never eat, then you should get an F, which means you die. And there's no way in the world that someone that's taking bad care of themselves like that should drain energy off of those who are doing good things for ourselves. But please know that there has been fictionally, a whole group of these hydrogel soldiers who have done exactly that. They're not shambling drug addicts down on the Ventura Pier or something like that. They are much more working for corporations and even being well paid for some of the work that they do in software engineering and connecting directly and creating AI. But still, they are siphoning energy off of others. So uh, the best answer I can give to you is that the work that I do in this world is to restore boundaries so that there's not this slush fund artificially connected levels of reality, and so that each one of you has an individual chance. Like you have a snowball's chance in hell. You have an individual chance to be able to accelerate and to remember yourself as a pure light being. So the good news, like when I told you that the city felt better today, I think it's because myself and many others have been working to reduce the infrastructure that creates the artificial connectivity, and you're not going to have that for very much longer. And that's what's been preventing your planetary experience of ascension, because you start to accelerate and something else kind of like drags you down and drains that energy away. So please know very, very soon this acceleration will happen, and the acceleration will bring those of you who are viable potentials into your future and keep you going, and it will destroy and necessitate the destruction faster of the stuff that is not viable. That's what you're already starting to see. So some of these biological people that are not viable, they're going to corrode away even faster. And also edifices that are no longer viable. So that can be stuff that's like nation state power dynamics, and also economic systems and other forms. Like think about how much economy and money is used as an enablement to keep things going that should not be going. So the boundaries and the restoration of correct flows of energy has to do with biological energy, cognitive energy, life force energy, and also, resources like money and other things like that. And you're going to have to witness a very strong restoration of boundaries. So in your body, like if you got a bruise, then you have blood is in places where it's not supposed to be, and you have to restore your boundaries. And this is called healing. This is what you need on your planet. You need a restoration of boundaries that is called healing, where you recognize the stuff that is viable from the stuff that is non-viable, the futures that you want to be on and that you can inhabit versus the futures that you can't inhabit or they're non-viable. And really, in our planetary structure like this, we are almost at this level where we're at the path of least likelihood, because we already had the vestigial parallel timelines of like world catastrophe, nuclear conflagration, and death of all organisms, like death of the entire ecosystem. We kind of just went past those timelines or those exits on the highway. That was right before Easter of this year of 2026, so just about a week ago. So yeah, we're not on those timelines where everything gets destroyed, and you are instead on these timelines of ultimate self-responsibility. And you're going to see the ultimate self-responsibility. Those who I will finish bring it to a conclusion on this. Some very erroneous physical humans have tried to hack their biology or to deny and abnegate the truthful limitations of what a body can be. And they think or thought that that is what ascension is. When you ascend, you really do move beyond what were the materialistic definitions of the limitation of your body. Like you have to eat, you have to drink, you have to poop. You will move beyond those limitations, but not by like some form of microchips implanted in you, not through vampiring from others, not through some non-life affirming and extremely corrosive edifice, which is what has not only been proposed on your planet, but that's the technology that they got from all of these failed galactic civilizations. The Pleiadians as one name brand, but there are many others that you just don't have a name for them. They are all similarly unimpressive wankers who are not good at what they do. When I say like experts do star travel and we don't need clank clank technology, these are the losers that need or require or choose to use clank clank technology. And the efforts to purge your own planet of that technology and those mentalities right now not only affects everything that is from your linear point of view in your past, but everything that comes as an end result from this moment moving forward into the future. So it's a big giant house cleaning, and soon we won't have those things. And you might remember them, but you'll remember them as like the bad old days. Like in the bad old days, there was that technology, but it's not here now. So, all right, good. And as always, like I have so many things that are written in my notes, and I always want to emphasize them, but I'm always like missing certain things. So I will be sure to send out my notes. I apologize that I didn't have that with the email invite for today because I was busy preparing for having to do something good. So I will send out the notes, and also like I encourage you to actually watch the whiteboards from 10 years ago because they're always valid, and there's stuff that I can't get to even though I talk for a long time, but I hope that you get the important stuff. Thank you so much. Brenda says, thank you profoundly. Master Aurora, love and appreciate you hugely. Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful recognition and the honorific. And it's my total joy to be a teacher and to share this with you guys. And I'm greatly uplifted because I have here in the example of this class, like good people. There are good people in the world, and you guys count. And thank you for being who you are. And you help me to know that there are good people that are worth efforting to teach you about all these things. And Becca says, great class. Thank you. You're so very, very welcome. So I will encourage each one of you, please watch the recorded whiteboards, read the notes, and then thank you. Joyce says, much love and appreciate you, Professor. Thank you, and hugs to Cheeky. Thank you, guys. Actually, I was a little bit worried because, I had to take Cheeky in for non-anesthesia teeth cleaning, and she's got her little heart defect and everything like that, but she did totally fine. But last night I was busy like making merkabahs and stuff to be able to go over and send out my notes. And so thank you that I was prioritizing that. And I couldn't get an appointment any other time other than Wednesday. So that's why my head wasn't totally in the game. I will send things out afterwards. Thank you very much, everyone. Please throw your books and pencils into the air. Your brains have been fully liquefied. Please do things that are life-affirming and good, and allow things to sink in and, make sense of things. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for being students of my class, and thank you to everyone who catches the archive, because I know that there are some people that are on other time zones and they can't necessarily be here for when we do our actual class. Thank you very much, everyone.